Okay. I hereby call the regular meeting of the Cambria Community Services Board of Directors to order. Would you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? All 5 board members are present, so we have a quorum. And I'd like to ask council to deliver the report from closed session.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did give a closed session report of the special meeting on the 14th, at the regular meeting on the 14th, but I'd be glad to do it again.
Please do.
Okay, the board held a closed session at a special meeting on March 14th to consider 2 items: a conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54.956.9 D1. The case is entitled Vincent versus Cambria Community Services District et al. And the second closed session item was a conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54.956.8. The property is 2950 Santa Rosa Creek Road, APN assessor's parcel number 013-081-076. That's the location of the SR4 well. The district negotiators are General Manager Matthew McElhaney and District Counsel Tim Carmel. The negotiating party is Coast Unified School District. Under negotiation is the lease or easement and fee purchase of the property, the price, and the terms of payment. No action was taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item?
No.
No. Okay, moving along to the agenda review. It's the point at which any of us on the board can make a request to have an item either moved or deleted. We can't have anything added. Is anyone on the board who wants to make any changes in the agenda at this point? Okay, thank you. Move along to board member communications. Any board member may make an announcement, a brief report on his or her activities, or ask a question for clarification. Anyone on the board wish to make a comment or report? Seeing none, I think Commander McDonald's here. It's time for our public safety reports. Sheriff, Sheriff's report comes first. Here we are. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, Mr. President, members of the board, members of staff, and members of the public. I'm Stuart MacDonald from the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office with a report for activity in the Cambria area for February 2024. We responded to 1 assault and battery call. That was a battery report. We had 9 disturbance calls, which included 8 general disturbances and 1 barking dog call. We had 1 burglary report. However, that was investigated and determined to be an unfounded report at a residence in Cambria. There were 3 theft reports. 1 was unfounded, and the other 2 were petty thefts, meaning that the value of the loss was under $950. There was 1 vandalism report, which was damage to a business sign. There were no mail thefts and no phone scams reported in February. We had 12 suspicious circumstances, which included 9 suspicious circumstances, 2 suspicious vehicles, and 1 suspicious person call. The deputies that work in the area conducted 17 enforcement stops, and all 17 of those were vehicle stops. There were 15 preventative patrol activities, which included 6 on-site activities, 7 foot patrols, 1 extra patrol, and 1 patrol check. And that's my report, and I'm prepared for questions or concerns.
Well, thank you, Commander McDonald. Anybody on the board With the question, I think Director Thomas.
Yeah, thanks, President Gray. Just a question. What business sign was damaged? What was the nature of the damage?
Yeah, I believe it was a business, not in front of the business, but a sign that was out by the highway. I believe just out here at Cambria Drive and Highway 1, and the sign was removed or knocked over.
Anybody else wishing to make a comment or question? Thank you. Commander McDonald?
All right.
for
Thank
coming
you.
here.
We'll see you next month.
Fire Chief's report is up. Is Chief Berkey here, or is he on?
President Gray,
Remote.
I'll be taking over
Okay.
for Chief Berkey. He's at a conference currently.
General Manager McElhaney.
Okay, so for our updates for February 24th, we have 41 rescue and EMS calls, 2 motor vehicle accidents, 9 hazardous conditions. We had 1 gas leak, 8 electrical hazards, 14 calls for service in the areas of public service assist and assist invalids is what is labeled here. We had 12 good intent calls, 2 false alarms, and 10 weather and disaster calls from the storms in February. We had no fires in the district. Further updates is the fire chief is working with the in-house fire department staff on applying for the SAFER grant to fund those safer firefighter positions that we currently have, and that's going to expire in January of 25. So if approved, we'll bring it back before the board for board approval for those safer firefighter positions that will staff our engines at 4.0 staffing.
Thank you, General Manager McElhaney. Any questions from the board? Okay. Any public comment on either of these reports?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment from the hall? I don't think there's any. Okay. So, without further ado, we'll go forward to public comment. Thank you, Mr. McElhaney, by the way. This is the portion of the agenda where we invite comment on items, on subjects that are in our jurisdiction but are not on this agenda. And I have 3 speaker slips, which I'll start with. Scott Anderson. Christine wants to, Christine Heinrichs. Okay, that's fine.
Scott Anderson, Don Archer, and I have prepared comments that will take our allotted 3 minutes each. I compiled these thoughts, but they resonated with others, so we share them here today. Cambria is stuck. After spending hours in regular meetings, standing committee meetings, strategic planning meetings, Cambria still has a long list of unfinished projects. Many of them have been on the list literally for years, yet completing them remains out of reach. Cambria's Community Services District government, led by you 5 elected directors, has a full staff. Top management is competitively paid at $175,000 for the general manager. The district's main responsibilities are to deliver water and take away wastewater. Extending a bit, it provides a fire department, parks and recreation, various related activities. Every community needs these services. Providing them, while never easy, should be straightforward. Lots of information and resources are available to address Cambria's challenges. But Cambria's projects take years to resolve. Look at the capital improvement project list or the strategic plan. The most glaring delayed project is the permanent coastal development permit application for the emergency water supply, sustainable water facility, water reclamation facility, which was built in 2014. Follow me here. The district was required to apply for a permanent permit within 30 days of the emergency permit that was issued May 15th, 2014, and it still hasn't done it. The application is complex because the project is complex, but the county and the Coastal Commission have been clear in specifying what is needed on the application. In response to an incomplete application in 2020, the county gave the district 9 single-space pages and information hold of what they'd need to include. The district spent the past 4 years on studies to answer those questions. General Manager McElhaney announced in his March letter to the community that the district and the county had a kickoff meeting on the application in February and will bring the revised application to the board April 11th. He predicts that the district will file the application later this year. It remains to be seen how that will fare, since the required biological studies still aren't done, and disposal of brine waste, now called concentrate, remains unresolved. And I yield to Don.
Yeah, Mr. Archer.
Cambria's main water line remains a temporary fix a year and a half after it burst. At the end of December, the Utilities Department reported that the project to replace it was 13% done. It's urgent because it's Cambria's sole only water line, and it runs parallel to a wastewater line that's just as old as the water line that burst. If that line bursts, Cambria's water could be contaminated. The Stewart tanks, scheduled for replacement in the 1990s, await replacement. Federal funds were approved in 2021, but the district hasn't gotten the job done yet. 2 EV charging stations were scheduled for installation this week, 4 years after the project started. This saga involves actually installing them in the wrong location. No one at the district took responsibility for that, removing them and finding the right location for them. The East Ranch restroom is a priority because the county requires that a restroom be available before any other park development. Base cost is $371,000, 240-day lead time, not yet ordered. The board has increased meetings, but not action or accomplishments. If anything, the standing committees and strategic planning and other meetings are making decisions slower, decision-making slower. Theoretically, standing committees give the public more opportunity to participate. Strategic planning gives the community direction. Contractors provide expertise, but holding a meeting or hiring a contractor is not the same as making a decision and taking action. The board needs to explain the situation, hear public opinion, and weigh whether the report a contractor will produce will help advance their mission of providing services to Cambria. The board can set deadlines and hold the general manager and his staff accountable for getting the job done. Unexpected delays may be inevitable, but the board should require prompt communication from the general manager when projects are delayed. Flexibility is desirable, but it's not an excuse for lack of determination. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, I guess, is next, right? Yeah.
So this is Cambria Stuck Part 3. Cambria, excuse me, Cambria has taken on more debt. In 2022, the district issued $12 million in debt for urgent upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant. The district spent years co-planning with PG&E a plan called the Strategic System Turnkey Projects. Over $9 million sits in a bank account unspent because the district doesn't have the projects ready to go. The above-mentioned wastewater treatment plant financing joined the $9 million borrowed to build the EWS, for which the district, as earlier referenced, hasn't yet completed a CDP application. The district still owes $5.5 million on that. Interest approximately doubles actual costs to the district. Deferring projects is expensive. Contractors charge professional fees. Deferred maintenance costs more in the long run. Failure to address problems eventually sparks someone to sue, and bring matters into court where Cambria pays the legal bills. The last lawsuit cost $250,000. Regarding services, Cambria shares the frustration of governing with other communities. Other communities manage to get things done, though. Cambria could get things done too. For example, board members could each champion a project. Director Michael Thomas is taking this path following his interests in parks, recreation, and open space. Perhaps directors could look towards leaving collective and individual legacies by delivering on these projects. In summary, professionals in every business, including government, hold themselves to standards of excellence. They grapple with problems, marshal their assets, set goals, meet deadlines, and accomplish their objectives. Cambria has an affluent electorate living in an idyllic setting. Cambria has the qualities to be an ideal community, an example of resource protection and a vibrant economy. Allowing necessary projects to stall short of completion is preventing Cambria from serving even its current residents' needs, much less becoming the shining coastal gem it could be. Encouragingly, General Manager McElhaney addresses these stalled projects in his March 15th letter to the community. We are grateful for his attention to these projects and look forward to more progress on them. Board members appear to be well-intentioned and equipped for the journey. Any day is a good day to start. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the hall wish to speak? Ms. Dodson, is there anyone online who wants to speak?
Yes, Kitty Connolly.
Ms. Connolly?
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I'm here to thank the board. In light of a recent fatal dog attack on Park Hill, I want to thank you again for strengthening the on-leash ordinance on the ranch and requiring that all dogs be on leash. This incident didn't happen on the ranch, but it's just an illustration of why these measures are needed. So hopefully everyone can have a safe visit there without any incidences. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
No, but I do have a written comment to read.
Please go ahead.
It's from Shar Silva. There is a very dangerous situation on the roadway at the corner of Oroville Avenue and Oroville Avenue. There are huge potholes and loose gravel in the middle of the road at the intersection. It isn't visible at night, so a bicycle or car tire can easily catch the holes and slide on the loose gravel. It's an even more dangerous hazard with someone on foot. This needs to be fixed before someone is seriously hurt. Thank you, Shar Silva.
Yeah, thank you.
And I did respond to her and tell her that this is the county's maintained
That's
road
good,
and provided her with their
Yeah, it's a frustrating thing that a lot of people have these problems of that kind, and there's the county does have a pretty good, decent system for reporting them. It's good. We go online and you can report them at Public Works. Thank you. Thank you for responding to her. Any other comments, or in writing or online?
No.
Okay, thank you. Moving along now to the manager's reports. Item 5A is the general manager's report. Mr. McElhaney.
Thank you, President Gray. So for my general manager report, a few items I'd like to highlight. The fire chief will be at the Veterans Hall along with myself and President Gray on March 27th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And he'll be ready to discuss anything and everything that has to do with the fire department or any concerns the public may have. We've put up with the help of Mr. Pearson, Mr. Jeff Wilson, myself, Mrs. Dodson, a very in-depth webpage about homeowners insurance and fire insurance. I know that is a hot topic, not only here in Cambria, but statewide. So it's a very robust webpage with lots of different links for various different situations that you may be in. If you're fearing to lose home insurance, if you have lost it, fire insurance, there's a lot of different links there. So I encourage our public to go there. I think public comment was timely considering some of the things that the staff is working on, and I appreciate our public holding us accountable. The EV charging station, 11 months in, that was one of our goals, and we poured concrete out front. They are moving that EV charging station. I was hoping it was going to be completed this week, but it looks like they're still working on the foundation. I anticipate by next week that EV charging station will be moved in the correct location. So one thing getting unstuck, so to speak. Staff has been working diligently on our project description. We met with the county, we got feedback from the county. I've sent that to the Coastal Commission. They're working on feedback, and we're going to be meeting as an ad hoc committee with President Gray and Director Dean, along with council, myself, and Mr. Green. And it is our hope that we'll have that finalized and ready before the board in April for submission. The biological studies, those are seasonal. We added scope to the in-stream flow study. Unfortunately, when you add scope to that study, the biological reports get dragged out a bit. So, and Mr. Green can touch on this a little bit later, but those studies have to be done during certain seasons. We did put in the utility report a graph, so to speak, of our target dates on when some of those biological reports should be done. Initial draft, hopefully targeting September. So that is definitely in the works. The transmission line, effluent line, it's a very large project. We're in the design phase as we speak. That's the engineering phase. Those cogs of government and working with regulators are slow moving. I appreciate the anxiousness of the community. We are as well. But the design phase with our engineers, it takes a significant amount of time. And that's just the design phase. Then we have to go out to bid for the contracting, which can go on as well. So we're trying to move as fast and as diligently as we can. But I do hear the public's comments, and we are really excited in the next 6 months to have quite a few projects underway. The SST project is moving forward. There's several things that have been spent on our ECMs, and Mr. Green will touch base on that. The East Ranch restroom, like said, Director Thomas is working on the community park master plan. And so while that restroom hasn't been ordered yet, part of that is because we're trying to integrate it into the community park master plan. So we want the plan to be well thought out, well completed before we start purchasing items that are going to be a part of a plan that isn't quite done yet. We, with the funds that we had in the pros committee, we met with an architectural designer that's helping assist with that community park master plan. So once that's completed, all those pieces will come together, and you will see that restroom ordered here shortly. There's a couple other things that I think R&I needs to work with Mr. Green on in terms of color and shade of the restroom, I believe. But that is happening. So, and then lastly, our fire hazard fuel reduction program. We're sending out lots of information on that in terms of our public, our citizens can hire contractors. We have a list of contractors you can reach out to for weed abatement. We have our dates set, and it's going to be a much cleaner process this year. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Yeah. Any questions, first of all, from the board? Director Farmer.
Thank you, President Gray. I don't necessarily have any questions to our general manager, but I would like to reply to the public comments that were stated earlier, especially because all three of the people that did that are friends of mine. I'm not going to say I speak for the board or for staff, but we definitely appreciate you folks expressing your concerns and wanting to call to our attention perhaps where you feel that we are lacking in how we're conducting ourselves as directors and how staff is moving forward with doing the work that needs to be done, especially with regard to the wastewater plant, with regard to the Stewart Street tanks, with regard to the coastal development permit, and so forth. I personally have been troubled by how slowly things do take place or don't take place in the 7+ years that I've been on the board. It certainly has been disappointing to see how long it's taken to address the challenges at the wastewater plant. But I do want to mention that those needs were ignored for years by previous boards because they had other things that were more important, as in building the emergency water supply project. That I won't go any further with that. Let me just say this, just speaking personally for myself. as I said earlier, I've been troubled by how things have and haven't been addressed. But as you've probably noticed, we're not necessarily responsible for how long it takes for particular issues of need, how long it takes to address them. I'm not going to say anything about the coastal development permit application, but with regard to other items, it seems like government and various studies seem to take a lot longer than we anticipate. It's not that we don't care. It's not that we are trying to do our best. That's all I have to say. And I just want to make a comment with regard to the quality of our general manager. And I think he reflects in many ways the quality and integrity of the people that you see sitting up here, even if you're a bit disappointed in what we are or aren't doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Farmer. Anyone else have a comment or a question primarily of the general manager? Anybody want to comment from the public? Ms. Dodson, anybody? Oh. Yes, please. Yeah.
I'm glad
Mr. Archer,
something.
right?
I'm
Yeah.
glad something is being done about the clearing the lot. So that was a big issue for me.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and I was going to ask and comment and ask to note extensive information here about that fire hazard fuel reduction program, which is different. There's a difference this year in the deadline, which maybe General Manager McElhaney can elaborate on a little bit. It's a month earlier. We're trying to get everybody to get this work done faster.
Yeah, so we've adjusted some of the dates, and I think our approach to this moving forward is a lot more communication. So what we did in the past was there's a few letters sent out, maybe 1 or 2 letters. And so what Mrs. Dodson, myself, and the fire chief are doing is we're doing a lot of social media blasts, weekly blasts, and we're going to be sending out more letters to all the residents, lot owners, and things of that nature. And the communication is just going to be a lot more robust. So everybody's going to be really well informed about these dates. We've also included a lot of contractors' contact numbers in there, so everybody knows who to go to. We'll start sending out more communications, because in the past, there was a couple contractors that would just go and do the lots and bill the owners later, and there wasn't much communication. It was something that's been done for decades. One of those business owners went out of business and sold, and so that line of communication broke down last year. So we're going to make sure that everybody knows about these dates, communicate those dates, and then we will swiftly evaluate all of the lots. Those that do not pass will then be placed on the weed abatement public nuisance list. Once that's passed, within a day, we will start our contractors on abating those lots. So the dates have adjusted slightly. I know there's been a call for our dates to be moved up a bit. Again, we have a different microclimate here in Cambria, in where our relative humidity is much higher than other areas. So our dates may seem a little bit later, but in reality, we're still in a very good position in terms of fire threat.
Thank you. Yeah. And I was going to add that these guidelines on page 8 are important to look at, because it's not just weeds, it's also flammable material of many kinds, in terms of brush and dead trees, dead limbs. So it's you're supposed to basically clean up the lots pretty thoroughly at this time. So it's good to see this information there. I had a quick question about the homeowners insurance webpage. Do we have that on the carousel on the homepage?
Yes.
We do. Excellent. Thank you. For those who, just one more comment. Yeah. For those who don't understand, the carousel is that when you go to our homepage, there's a panel at the top with items that you can scroll through sideways, and so that's a prime material that we have up there. It's good that it's there. Dr. Dean.
Okay, on this fire hazard fuel reduction program, I have a couple of questions on the guidelines. Okay, the third bullet point down on guidelines says all down trees or rounds or dead limbs within 30 feet of any structure must be removed, and tree stems fallen over shall be cut and retain no more than 6 feet of the log within this 30-foot zone. Is that 30 foot from your house within your property line, or does that 30 feet overlap into a vacant lot next to you?
I spoke with the fire chief. That is from the property line, from the house to the property line.
From the house to the property, so 30 feet over into the lot next to you doesn't count in this?
Not according, I mean, I'd have to double check with legal counsel and look at the regulations again, but I don't believe so. There are some things that we're still working on in terms of the administrative citation program that maybe if that needs to be removed because it's a hazard, we still might be able to motivate that to be done, even though it may not fall within that 30-foot range.
Yeah.
Okay, because if you walk around town, you'll see a house on a piece of property and a vacant lot next to it, and there's all kinds of branches and brush and everything that's just cut and left dry there. That could be a fire hazard.
Yeah.
I wanted to second that question and comment, actually, because I've been in correspondence with at least one homeowner who has lots next to her that are full of dead trees, or she said, I mean, I haven't looked at the lots, but she sees this as a hazard to her house. I'm sure they're within 30 feet of her house, but they're on another property. So I mean, this does need to be cleared up. And I think hopefully what it means is what it says, that if the problem is within 30 feet of a structure, not necessarily your structure, but a structure, it still has to be cleaned up. I'd hope that be the interpretation.
One more question.
One more question from Director Dean, yes.
Okay. It also says all down trees beyond 30 feet from any structure 12 inches in diameter or greater may remain on the parcel. However, the entire trunk must be completely on the ground. How does that apply to these trees that are cut and a totem pole of a trunk is left there?
That's a good question. The chief and I are gonna have to research that a little bit more. If they're dead and they pose a threat, I imagine they could be taken down. But I'd have to double check on that with the fire chief.
I would think if every single branch was removed from the tree and that trunk is still standing there, that it's probably dead. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments, questions from the board? Is there any public comment on this report? Mr. Archer.
Well, it's more of a question in regard to the last issue about the height of the trunks of the tree. It was my understanding that they were leaving those trees as they are so that woodpeckers and other creatures could nest there or use that as a habitat. So rather than bring the tree down all the way to the ground, some felt that it would be better to leave it a little higher. If it creates a fire hazard, then I would think it should be removed. But other than that, that should be taken into consideration, I would think.
Yeah, I could definitely check into that. We can consult our arborist who knows a lot about nesting seasons and the issues surrounding that.
I don't know if I've already asked for public comment online remotely. Have I?
Not yet.
Is there any?
No.
Okay, thank you. I guess we'll move on to the next manager's report, which is, I believe, facilities and resources.
President Gray and the board, how you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing, thank you.
I do
So, Gary.
apologize. I did not get a presentation out to you guys. I've been having problems with my phone in connection with my computer. Half of my pictures are coming out gray. I don't know what's going on with it. I've been trying for over a week now. So I ended up doing old school and typing it out here. So the first thing that I'm going to be covering is our weed abatement. I know that's a big topic that's coming up. So what we're doing, we've already started mowing on the East Ranch and hoping to be completed by the end of this week. We're already weed whacking we've already started along Main Street, the walkway to the East Ranch, there next to the bicycle kitchen. We already cleared all that out of there. Between the bank and the church, we already cleaned the walkway there that goes over the embankment because they're getting ready to do the overflow for the Santa Rosa Creek down here. The Vets Hall, we've already done a little bit on the exterior there, getting that all situated. The skate park, we already hit some out here out on the street. I know the nesting season is going to be the big thing. There's quite a bit of erosion that did come down from the neighbors up above. We're waiting for that to dry. Nesting season will more or less May or so. grab all that dirt and dump it off on the backside, and then trim up all those trees behind there and do a little more weed abatement. So that way it's all in one motion for that one there for safety on that one there. We're planning to start the Steelhead Park and the creek overflow with the tractors and the mowers. We're looking into getting that basically done right after the rain that comes through, and the next spurt that's coming through, because I know just for the conditions, it's going to hurt us a little bit, slow us down. We'll be doing a lot more on hand with the weed whackers. So basically, we're looking at East Ranch. We'll be all done hopefully this week. The plan is to start weed whacking on our CCSD lot and start with the fire break there on the West Ranch. We've already started some areas. I've already been out reconning, looking at some different areas. Today I looked at a couple of them, and I'll be honest with you, I actually want to take a week to 2 weeks back from the office so I can go out there, do it myself, and help out. So that's a big thing that I'm looking at right now. But we're hoping to get everything started here within the first 2 weeks of April. We're going to be in there by hand doing weed whacking, assessing trees that are going to need to be removed, stuff of that nature, and chipped, and everything that we can do possibly on our behalf. This will provide the proper time, to complete a lot of the clearings and planning to remove of the dead trees. Like I said, in these lots, this also determine if we need to contract with the more extensive equipment, because I know there's some of the stuff that is a little bit beyond our realm. But we'll manage. We'll turn around and do what we can before we actually seriously have to bring somebody in for financial reasons on that. Piscatini Ranch, we've had quite a few trees had fallen during the last 2 storms that went through. That was a pretty extensive cleanup on a lot of that. We had a crew go in where there was no turning back. Started going in, it was a little too wet. So it was either commit or drop all of his equipment. Committed, went in, did a portion of the work, turned around on the way out, got stuck again. They got it situated. He did go back on their own time and stuff, and they feathered out quite a bit of it. My anticipation is once everything starts drying out, we're going to light scrape. We're going to go in and clean up everything up in there once everything starts drying out, make things a little bit easier. Like I was saying, that crew that went in there at that time, they did drop about 20 yards of cubic chippings out of the trees that were there. There was roughly about 4 trees on that one there. I know there's currently another pile, roughly over 30 solid yards of chips that are going to be chipped up in this next batch. That was 7 trees that were dropped. They were hazardous. There was 3 that were hazardous. The other ones were leaning. They were pretty bad. So we ended up pulling them just to make the safety for along the trails and stuff of that nature for the public. Let's see here. Facilities. Currently, we're back in our old building off the rodeo grounds. Mr. Thomas, he came by one day and the GM to check it out in there. The crew, they're in really good spirits. Being back in there, turning around and meeting up, doing our daily thing out here in the mornings, meeting up there, and then taking off from our plans for the day, keeping us on a good pace. Like I said, this week they actually did an integrated pest management. So what we do on that behalf, we go around and do all the basically rodent control, insect sprays, stuff of that nature. We've been doing a lot of that, cleaning things up, checking boxes. We ended up purchasing boxes and take over all that, just the extra expenditure. We took it on upon ourselves, and it's working out really good on that. We see a lot of activity right now, but yeah, it'll work out in the long run. The homeless. So there's not very much to report on this one here. I know Caltrans ended up moving the individuals over by the bridge by the East Ranch or the Santa Rosa Creek, that one there. Like I said, it's throwing water on a cat. They'll scatter, they'll pop up again. That one there, they did do a couple cleanups. They did the one above the parking lot. There was roughly about 5 other encampments that were up there that were abandoned. Sight unseen, nobody knew about it. I got a hold of Al. He turned around, he took care of it that same time that they ended up relocating the other one that was there. We did find one on the West Ranch, right off of Santa Rosa, quite a ways up into the brush. The gentleman and I and the crew went up there, trash cans, picked up everything. It was all abandoned. There was even a bicycle that was chained to a tree. So yeah, it was one of those, it seems like somebody was waiting to come back. But I scoped it out and we had some concerns from the community. So we let it sit for a little bit and there was no activity. So we took it upon us to turn around and have it all removed. So the beautification of Cambria, I've been talking to Claudia Harmon in regard to this for the trash recycling reciprocals deals around town. They're talking about the color that they're all fading and they're need some good cleaning. So what I'm trying to do right now is work with them and also with us with our allotment of time for weed abatement, going through, sanding them, and also restaining them. I know one of the things that they've done in the past was pick them up, take them to the yard and do it that way. We're kind of crunched with time and also with space. So one of the things I've kind of made a suggestion to her and I were both working it out of having our crews go out and sand and turn around and stain it at that point. I know it's a lot of notification and a lot of different debris, mess and stuff of that nature. That's one thing that we're considering from this point. Excuse me. The recruitment. So we did do some interviews. I did some interviews last week. Turned around and went through quite a few different people and different applications. We have one individual that's actually going through a second interview, most likely tomorrow with the GM, do a one-on-one, and then we'll be determining from that point, see how bad they want to buy into it to be part of our program here. I'm pleased with all the candidates I came across, but like I said, this individual stood out well beyond, and I think it'll be a very good fit for our department and also for the district in this aspect here. Our crew new hire, this is one I wanted to bring up, was Oscar Mora. He's actually here today. So I wanted to just turn around and say I'm pleased, with the addition to our department with him. He has been upfront. He stepped up with our department in such a short period of time. I mean, you're talking about less than a month. He's really taken the reins. Very proud to see him step up and take on a lot of responsibilities, especially being a new guy. So he has become a pillar with everything that's being done, and also with our current employee, Alberto. I got to hand it, these two guys, they're stepping up and we're making things happen. Because I know the weed abatement is a big concern. They know how serious I am with it, and they're getting on it. So that's the main thing. So yeah, one of the things I do want to say, we have been moving forward steadily with minor learning moments, little things that occur, but you know what? It's not costly, but it's to the point to where we learn as we go, especially in our department. Some terrains are a little wetter than others, and you just got to bear with it.
Okay.
So if there's any questions or anything at this time, I'd like to answer those, and then I'd like to have them come up and meet you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Any questions from the board? Director
wonder-
Dean. Yeah.
I just wonder if you'd like to introduce Mr. Mora.
Yes, I was going to wait after the questions
Okay.
and stuff
Okay.
like that, so that way he can
Bring
come
him
up.
up.
And,
Bring him up.
yeah, come on up. Yeah, this is Oscar Mora.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Oscar.
Welcome, Mr. Mora.
Thank you very much.
you.
Pleasure to be here. So I'm a Cambria local, born and raised. My roots go back to Mexico. That's where my parents are from. They do own a home up here on Air Force housing, as we know it, right? I graduated Coast Union in 2010, 2 little ones. I'm happy to be a part of this this department. And I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, definitely. I think that goes without saying. So if you can't tell, we've been getting after it. So.
Okay. Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Farmer.
Yeah, I just want to comment. I think it's awesome that he's so-called homegrown. If he actually went to Coast Junior, that's just very heartwarming. I want to ask you a silly question, which is going to be a little bit foolish, but are you related to Oscar Mayer?
No, I've gotten that a couple times, but no relation that I know of, at least not yet.
All right, so just trying to create a little levity here. Thank you. All the best, man. Welcome
Thank you
aboard.
very much.
Thank you. There he is. Yeah. Director Thomas.
Thank you, and I just want to welcome you aboard, Oscar. I've seen you half a dozen times already in all the usual places out working, and kudos, David, for finding someone local that really has a passion to work here. I'm just pumped to have you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
No,
Director Dean.
I just wanted to say welcome, and I'm happy
Yeah.
to meet you.
Yeah.
I've
Thank you.
seen you out about working too.
Oh,
so,
okay. Yeah, you'll see me quite a bit around here, I suppose.
Well, welcome.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Any comments from the public in the hall or online on this report?
No.
Okay, we'll move along then to the, I think, the finance manager's report. Looks like General Manager McElhenney will deliver that one too? Or is Ms.
have-
Fritz on, oh, there,
Miss Fritz ready.
okay, there she is, okay, great.
I'm on Zoom.
Fritz.
Hello.
Via Zoom, hello.
Thank you, President Gray. So I'm presenting the March Finance Manager's report, and I have, along with, just the normal reporting of the compensation for the directors, the cash balances. I'd like to point out that, well, something I didn't put on the report, but we've started the budget process for 24-25. So that's pretty exciting and a little bit surreal that we are already there, but it has been started. I also have the update on the audit, saying that we were hoping to finalize the audit report, and it was going to go before the Finance Committee on March 26th, and would then be reported to the board in April. And I'm happy to say that we did get our finalized report. It will be presented next week to Finance, and so we're on track to have that to the board in April. And with that, and I've also have the updated SST budget so far through February.
Right. Thank you. Any questions from the directors? Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to have you talk a little bit about the U.S. Bank on the graph on page 13, because all of a sudden there's a yellow line. And
yeah, so this is representative of us changing over our investment strategy. And so you can see the LAIF dips. We took the money from LAIF and we distributed it amongst CAMP, and US Bank is our investment account.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, any questions? Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Gray. And just remind me, have we talked about, in listening to the Finance Committee, the investment returns following the redirection of our reserves that you orchestrated last year? I gather the investment returns are something like double. Have we discussed that at the board, or was that just in the Finance Committee?
We discussed it in Finance, and we will be bringing the actual investment report before the board in April. So I believe I will be incorporating that investment report in my quarterly reports. But since this is the first time we're seeing it, we're going to bring it before the board specifically as its own item, and we'll have our investment advisors on the line as well to answer any specific questions and comment about the report itself. They do deliver that report to me on a quarterly basis. So you will see that next month.
Well, thank you. And just wanted to get, congratulations early, a big hooray and, early thanks. And then we can thank you again next month.
Okay. Any more questions from the directors? I just had a quick question. Actually, maybe could be explained a little bit to the public. The U.S. Bank is not just a bank account. It's a portfolio. This is where that investment account is situated, but it consists of a number of securities.
Yes, and
low risk,
treasury
but-
bonds. Yeah, so, and that will all be detailed out in that investment report that we will be getting on a quarterly basis. So this just is representative of the actual balance as a point in time. But yes, it's not necessarily a bank account. It's our investment account.
Yeah, thank you. Any public comment on this report from the people in the hall and anybody online?
No.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fritz. And we'll move on to Utilities report, Mr. Green, who's here.
Hi, good afternoon, President Gray. Distinguished board, thank you. We're going to kind of mix it up here a little bit. I'm going to start with the water portion for February, and I'd like to bring up Superintendent Cody Meeks.
Good afternoon, President Gray and board. My name's Cody Meeks, and I'll be going over the Water Department activities for February. First off, I'd like to congratulate our water operator, Adam, who attended a backflow course to recertify his backflow testing license. This course also had a practical hands-on test and a written exam with it. Adam is responsible for the testing, repairing, and reporting of the District's 16 internal backflow devices. There's cost savings associated for the district to employ and train a water distribution operator to maintain district-owned backflow devices. Each device, district-owned or not, is required to be tested yearly per the San Luis Obispo County Environmental Health Permit. To touch on the storm that happened in February, on Sunday, February 4th, an atmospheric river system hit Cambria with wind gusts exceeding 65 miles an hour. Intense rains were present just 3 days before, causing heavily saturated soils around town. More rain fell along with trees from high wind gusts. Power and communications lines were down due to incidents involving trees. The on-call operator remained on site all day and handled power loss throughout the town. Backup power generation remained on for the duration of the storm to avoid any damages from intermittent starting and stopping of power. In the photo, the on-call water operator also assisted the Facilities and Resources Department of clearing a tree on Moonstone Beach Drive. During that day, ongoing evaluations of the department assets were constantly checked throughout the storm and proper operation was maintained. On page 21, you guys could see one tree fell on a hydrant. We located the shutoff nut before removing the tree, just in case there was any damages done. We worked with county roads to remove the tree. Luckily, no damage was done. The county public works road crew removed the portion of the tree just over the road, leaving behind still the residual of the tree over the hydrant, and we removed that remainder of the tree in-house to maintain proper operation of the hydrant. One backup power generator in a critical system location remained online for a day and a half to avoid any damages as a result of the power loss. We apologize for any excessive noise and for those customers in that area, but we have to maintain consistent electrical power in these booster stations to provide high quality water and pressure. An additional tree fell on a perimeter fence that secures a domestic tank site. The water department removed the tree and cleaned up debris on site. Another close call between a tree and a fire hydrant was noted in another portion of town. On to valve exercising. The water department resumed valve exercising paired with hydrant flushing. Isolation valves for the water mains and fire hydrants were exercised. The condition of the operating nut was noted and updates were mapped in our GIS system. Performing valve exercising extends the effective life cycle of the isolation and control valves in our distribution system, as well as ensuring complete shutoff for any repairs that would become necessary. Valve exercising and hydrant flushing occur collectively. As tuberculation is broken up from the seat of the valve, hydrants are opened and flowed, cleaning the seat of the valve and allowing for a smooth surface to seal on. This is performed for the health and quality of water and helps maintain disinfection residual and overall water quality in the distribution system. Touching on billing reads, we began reading for the billing cycle on the 23rd. And WRF, while we did circulate our preservative and monitor pH, I'd like to bring you up to speed on WRF for the next month. We had a few calls with the manufacturer of the WRF, H2O Innovations, to have their controls engineer out in April. This is to do so to help for the ZLD pilot. The purpose of this trip is to integrate and update chemical dosing systems, run a chemical clean in place on the RO trains, and update the operating computer system into Logix. The current pumps are no longer supported by the manufacturer, meaning the obsolete pumps no longer have rebuild parts available. A high and low pH cleaning will occur during the same trip, led by the same staff member to extend the life of the RO elements. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Meeks. Jim, you want to bring up the next, Mr. Green, you want to bring up the next person, or you want to? How's it work here?
No, I'll just take over.
Okay,
I'd like,
Mr. Green will take over from here then.
I'd like Cody to present, but I'll go ahead and present the wastewater portion of it for you now.
We'll have board ask questions after you finish yours.
Right.
Your part.
Very good. Okay. Wastewater plant activities for the month of February. I'd like to congratulate Arthur Garney. He passed his grade 2 exam for wastewater. So it is a very difficult exam. So he's been promoted to operator in training 4. Even with him passing the exam, he does need a year of seat time actually operating the plant, which he's about 6 months into. I know the water department misses Art Garney, but it's nice to have a dual trained operator in our system, especially working for utilities that has 3 years experience in water and now almost a year in wastewater. And we look forward to seeing him grow in his role and continue to challenge him in the wastewater department. Also, we had 22 young adults from Camp Ocean Pines come visit us during the month of February. Fortunately, they hit us on a good day in February. We had some struggles at the plant during that month, but they hit us on a sunny day when operation was starting to resume back to its optimum state. And they seemed really interested and invested in it. They asked a lot of questions. We even took them to the biological side of it, where they got to see microbes under a microscope that are actually the bugs that eat away at the anaerobic digestion there. So yeah, they weren't afraid and they were interested. And of course, we're always pitching to young adults this career and vocation and passing that along. Back to the plant though, with the huge inflows, obviously Superintendent Meeks discussed the inclement weather that we experienced. It was extremely difficult on the plant. I know we touched on it several times during last month's board meetings. Just now, this past week, we've caught up on our treatment process. With flows that fast, I know we've discussed it before, but we have bulking or short circuiting, which ends up in our effluent ponds, which we can then not distribute to our percolation ponds. We have to make sure that meets spec and all regulatory compliance levels. So that went back into our south digester, which was all cleaned out and ready to get examined for our SST program. But we had to fill up that 250,000 gallon tank with influent flow and then kind of do the shell game around where we move that back to the headworks to try and clean up our effluent ponds. So as of right now this week, we have all of our effluent ponds clear, half full, and the process is running wonderfully there. But it has been a very trying month for wastewater staff and several on-call operators. We were almost staffed 24/7 for that second week in February where we had that huge deluge of rain. So it's nice to have wastewater guys get caught back up on that and kind of get back into just the regular seasonal flow there.
Mm-hmm.
Let me touch on some SST program here. Superintendent Artho gave a full report, a very lengthy report at our R&I committee. So if I can touch on basically what I call the Cliff Notes version of this for you guys. Starting off with the influent flow equalization, as I described, we had to put our huge flows into that to help process for the last 6 weeks. That has now been drained at the end of February and cleaned and ready for the inspection. We're going to have some workers and the site engineers come on site the first week in April. So our actual groundbreaking for the SST project will begin the first week of April. We can't do any underground right now. We just measured the underground water levels below the plant, and it is 6 foot below the plant. So underground work for the next 2 months is not going to happen. So we've had to juggle around and jostle around some scheduling. We're going to start off with the blowers in the blower room. Obviously, there's not a bunch of underground work to do. If we do have some inclement weather, it's a roofed, it's a house facility, so we can go in and start those upgrades to that. Some of the holdups, we've received 100% drawings, and Tony and myself have been going back and forth, the engineers from Southland and our consultants, MKN, working on this. And we need to operate one of our treatment processes that has 2 operating tanks areas in a single cycle. And that's some difficulty. Way they set this SST up was full-time operation of both. Well, we need to retire one or for cleaning and maintenance and upgrades. So we're kind of honing in on those final things. It's our waste activated sludge and our return activated sludge portion, which is a huge treatment process. It's one of our main processes of processing our wastewater. The blower submittal has been approved, and our generator was approved, and we're looking forward to purchasing that and getting that procurement started here within the next week. Control and operational procedures have been approved for those RAS and WAS pumps, and also for our SCADA. So we'll look to see some of those components start to arrive as well. And well, I've touched on the upgrades and backup power. It's kind of the latest update for SST. We do have another meeting with our consultants on Monday, so we'll bring some of the latest, greatest news to the GM letter for you next week. It'll have all the updates detailed in that. Also, wastewater activities, we got another 1/4 mile of jetting and cammering done, and then clean the wet wells at lift stations B4 and B1. I can move into utilities activities, or if you guys want to touch on any questions specifically for water and wastewater.
Let's go ahead with utilities activities. So we'll just do have questions on the whole report. We'll just go, just proceed to the utilities activities.
Absolutely, Mr. President. Coastal development permit. We've submitted some of the requests that county has come back to us on, and the second revision of that we're awaiting, and we should get any day now, and we'll bring that to ad hoc committee for editing and final approval, and then we'll look to bring it back forward to the board in public hearing at that point as well. Our in-stream flow study is currently, as we move into April, May, they're still concentrating on the Van Gordon area and the aquatic life there. They're doing stream flow, gauging and reporting. And we look for that report, the initial completed document of that in October. The San Simeon Wellfield Transmission Project, we just met with our consultants last week, and let me give you the latest notes from that. We are looking into the third alternative. This was brought forward to R&I last week. We look forward to bringing this to the board in April at our first regular meeting. For alternative 3, there is some final geotech, so some small coring we need on the exotic garden side. And then if you've ever been to the Washburn Road up to Washburn Camp there's some geological structures that we just want to make sure are greater depths than 15 foot. But we'd like that third alignment, which is about 25 foot off of our current easement right now. So we look forward to having a meeting with State Parks where we'll be requesting the abandonment of those lines there, and then requesting a new right of entry and a new easement for those 2 new lines there as well. So we'll have to work out some of those details with State Parks, and along with the geotech there. Archaeological and some other cultural environmental reporting is being done right now. And as we enter in the seasons in April and May, deeper dives into the environmental permitting are going on. 65% design is needed to submit for our CEQA. And right now with just design, we're at about 20%. As soon as we get the approval for the alignment 3 or whatever alignment we have, that last 40% to get us to that 65% drawing, we should have that by summertime. So we'll look forward to in the June or July months of submitting that CEQA application. And we should have approvals and be ready to break ground on this by June 1st, 2025. The permitting, we can't break ground or get into the wetlands area before June 1st of any year. And the environmental and those other designs just won't be completed in time for us to break ground this year. But it's a project that's gaining momentum, and we look forward to bringing you those alternatives. Water meter replacement and AMI. We've made a decision, and we're going to replace all of our registers and endpoints all at once. All residential and commercial endpoints will be replaced. We're going to do this year, so that way we have the data, and we're hoping to have this completed and ready by our fiscal year start of July 1st. It's an ambitious project. Sorry, Denise, if you're looking on right now. I know it's a lot of pressure, but I think we can handle it. And we look forward to getting that data, and from there, we'll analyze what areas we'll attack for the full brass body replacements, which we're looking to start next year. We're also started some application process for a $500,000 grant for AMI, and we'll submit that in October, in which we're hoping to have funding by the following summer for that. The Cambria Skate Park project, we've had to do some archaeological and some native lands and sacred heritage phone calls and reaching out. Utility staff is finishing up those phone calls, and Cogstone will be preparing that document for us. And the community park restroom, Stowe County received our final application period, so we look forward to having that completed and then approved by county here in the upcoming months. And our Stewart Street tanks. We did some geo. We know we now have to move our pads. Unearthed 1992 documents that describe our retaining wall and our tank pads underneath there, and they are not sufficient for today's CBC or our California building codes. So we're looking at moving those tanks a little bit over. And we'll have some updates on that as I have a meeting with our consultants next week with that as well. I'll be bringing you a report on the San Simeon Well 3 project here shortly, and available for any questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Green. Yes, any questions from the directors? Director Farmer first.
Thank you very much, President Gray. Thank you, Mr. Green, once again for a thorough report. So I just want to ask you about 2 or 3 items here with regard to the in-stream flow study, which, as we know, is taking a while. So I just want to, you were just describing basically the timeline here with regard to assessments taking place in June, more data during the summer, and completing the document in October. So you feel pretty confident that that's going to happen? Because, in the past, we've had some overly optimistic projections as to what's going to happen, but you feel pretty good with this, right?
I do, yeah. No, I have all the faith in our consultants, Stillwater. They've been doing background work on this for years. Obviously, the majority of the documents prepared. What we're waiting on now are these seasonal environmental results that they can incorporate into that. Right. So again, it's just we're having to take these surveys and assessments during the season, and that's why we're having to wait so long for that. So, but the majority of the document is done, and we look forward to bringing that to R&I and then forward to the board as well.
Also, with regard to the San Simeon Wellfield transmission line, and I know there's, I think, some legitimate concern with the fact that, that line broke a couple of years ago. We have something temporary out there. But, you and I have talked about this, and you feel very confident with regard to the quality of the temporary line that's out there right now. And we should feel pretty secure in that the water delivery system in that regard is something that you're totally confident about, right?
That high line or that temporary pipe that we have installed there could probably last 30 years out there, without a doubt. It's just the vulnerability of that being there. We know during high seasonal flows for precipitation that pipe does move, and that's why it had sort of a meandering when it was installed, so that way it could stay connected and still move with that rainfall. I think our first rainfall last March, when we had that pipe moved 17 feet, and all the thrust block locations stayed connected and intact. We look at it 2-3 times a month, weather permitting, and we walk that line twice a month, and it is all intact. But The true concern is the vulnerability out there, that it's out there.
Right.
The connectivity and the integrity of the materials and the installation isn't a question, more as a concern to, honestly, vandalism and other things, so yes.
Also, with regard to the Stewart String Tank project, obviously we had some public comment earlier that was very thoughtfully presented, but I'd like you to make one correction, if you would, with regard to when these tanks initially needed to be addressed. The remark was that it was in the early 90s when
the install date was 1992 on this.
Exactly. Well, that's when I wanted to bring up that there's some confusion as to when things were supposed to be repaired as opposed to actually when the tanks were installed. So I just wanted to address that. And if I could just bring up one more thing. With regard to, I know you mentioned in your report that you feel pretty comfortable with regard to the water levels right now in the San Simeon well, because it's a little bit above average. So I just wanted to point out when the hillsides are green, everything feels good. But I'm noticing, and I think our rain was probably a little bit below normal, but the well levels remain fairly high. But I'm just noticing on page 31 that the well level, even though it's above average right now, has actually dropped a little bit. I know they're anticipating a little bit of rain this weekend, but I just wanted to comment for the members of the public out there, the majority of them that make a very fine effort to conserve water, that I think we need to be alert to that this year, just because, like I said, with the well level already dropping, that's a concern of mine. And like I said, I know that most people in the community share that concern as well. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, its decline is seasonal. It's just as it is. And it has been 100% of our production for the community. We run SR4 monthly just to keep it tuned up and keep the media wetted. And we have to take monthly samples raw from the source anyways. So during that period, we usually run it for about 4 hours. We've seen that with SR4, if we have extended periods of shutdown, is more difficult. So we're not trying to run the Santa Rosas out of season. It's just merely to keep it tuned up. And the Division of Drinking Water is aware of that, and I have their blessing with that as well. But yeah, so when you see those seasonal declines as we do for San Simeon, it's because we're pulling 100% or 99% of the consumption for the community from that well. And then, of course, we haven't seen rainfall. But when you get 60 inches of rain at Rocky Butte, and it's going to take all of its time to come down that San Simeon Creek there, that's why you've seen such sustained levels until now there as well. But I'm pretty confident in our aquifer management, just as we've done in years past, and we'll utilize during the season, our dry season, our Santa Rosa yield. And we'll ensure that we won't run the San Simeons dry in what could be leading up to a dry year.
Yeah. Thank you. Any more questions?
I just want to thank Mr. Green for always having the details that we need to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Director Thomas is next.
Thank you, President Gray, and yeah, thank you both. A couple of questions. I got a new vocabulary word on page 23, tuberculation. I had to do some research. I gather, that's a problem with the ductile iron uncoated pipe. If I gather right, that is not any longer a problem with the cement lined pipe. Is that right? And if so, like how much of our water line is the uncoated ductile iron versus cement coated? Do we know?
Yeah, we have about 7 miles of ductile iron total in our system.
Of uncoated.
The rest is that, asbestos concrete pipe, which
so we're gonna have
very well with our system.
So we're gonna get to learn that word a few times.
Yes, the non-technical term is carbuncle, which is it's basically like a form of electrolysis. It's on metal. So if you've ever seen rain or something hit a copper fitting and they kind of grow, it kind of looks like a cancer for it. That's what you experience on those valves and those valve seats. if you don't flush, or if you have dissimilar metals as well. So if you take copper directly to a galvanized fitting, you'll have immediate electrolysis, with the salt content in there. It's basically like hooking it to a charged battery and, like an anode rod that's sacrificial there. So many of the leaks that we've had that we've gone over in the past 5+ years are just that, where they've taken a copper fitting or a brass fitting and gone directly to galvanize. So we've repaired a lot of those out in the system too. But unfortunately, the tubercles inside some of those metal valves in ducting just happen. So that's why we keep up on our maintenance and flushing activities.
Gotcha. So we have 7 miles roughly of uncoated.
Yeah, out of 67, that's not too bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, project summary table, so much better than in the past. I had to look back at prior meetings. I think, whoa, thank you. Sounds trivial, but for over a year, I've been asking for the header to repeat on every page. The simplest thing in the world.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you like that presentation.
So-
It does have it's more aesthetically pleasing, and I think it's set up in a better way that's more digestible for maybe the first-time reader.
But beyond the trivial, I mean, especially the table you put in the project schedule at the bottom of the in-stream flow study. All right, way to commit.
Right.
All right, you put a stake in the ground out there. Everybody's going to be watching, and you knew that when you put it there. So way to go, and yeah, everybody's going to be watching, and we'll look forward to tracking that.
Great. I appreciate that you like that. As we go forward with each of these other individual projects, I've requested from our consultants that they provide me that sort of summary table, of course, at the beginning. And then as we update that as we go, so look forward to more of those in.
And just one other thing, for years we've had the last item on this table was the COVID-19 wastewater surveillance. I mentioned ages ago, it seemed like time to drop that. Well, it's gone now. And now you have regulatory compliance reporting. And for those who haven't really looked at this, page 27, oh my goodness, there are a lot of reporting and requirements. And if anyone wonders what's keeping you all busy, I think we know now. Again, great improvements to this table.
Thank you. Yeah, for a very small system and small community, it's very detailed reporting and compliance we have on both the water and the wastewater side. Side note too, this isn't really a February activity. It's this month activity. Due April 1st is our new wastewater permit that's going to incorporate the SST. We're working with our consultants to kind of provide a process flow and description. And Tony, Tristan Reaper, and myself have been working on populating that report. It's a very in-depth report, kind of like Water's electronic annual report. This is a 67-page document. I don't know how many attachments we put in, 30? Yes, documents. So we'll have that forward and available if anyone would like to look that over as well.
Thanks. Yeah, it looks like the new program manager has a hand in this. So kudos to Mr. Reaper.
Yes. He has quite an experience in wastewater as well, so we appreciate his assistance.
Thank you. Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Couple things. One is your reports have been, and this one is especially very comprehensive and very thorough, and I want to let you know I'm impressed with how you answer questions. So I want to thank you for that. And I just have something, because I was going to say some of the things that Director Thomas was saying about the table, but I do have a question about, there's the purple print and then the black print, and so what does that mean?
The purple is the updated.
Okay, so
The black is kind of the status, where if we don't have anything new, it's part of our project table. It's not out of our minds or out of our hearts, but the purple is the latest, greatest. So that's usually the freshest, updated stuff. And this is the part that usually drives Haley nuts, because that's me on a Wednesday night meeting with my consultant, trying to get that to her before Wednesday night at 6 before this has to drop. So yeah, that's all of our latest, greatest updates that we have.
So for clarification, let's just take the Stewart Street tank project. All of this purple here is new this month.
As I see, there's a couple paragraphs that look redundant
Yeah.
from last.
So yeah, that
okay.
I would just recommend that if it was there already, leave it in black.
Right.
And if it's new, let's do purple.
That's probably my editing skills with my
okay.
copy and paste. I think I grabbed the whole
Okay.
thing instead of the paragraph, so I apologize.
Thank you. No, it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Dean? No.
I think we did at one of our last meetings request that the new updates be in another color, and we chose purple because that's my favorite color and your favorite color. Anyway, I would like to agree with what's already said. Our utilities reports are so much more detailed and comprehensive, and excellent job reporting and giving us the answers when we ask for something.
Thank you. Yeah, we're doing some great projects. They have great momentum, and I like to talk, so I don't have a problem presenting to you guys. So yeah, I enjoy spreading some good cheer.
And he does a preliminary report at the R&I meeting as well that is very thorough, and we have several people on R&I who are very knowledgeable about infrastructure and do ask him some challenging questions. So, and he's always able to answer. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Dean. Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. And speaking of the purple prose or whatever you call it, the purple type, there is under the description of the AMP, it's in purple. So I was wondering what is new with the description.
I think it was just requested that we do a little deeper dive about what it's about. So this is again kind of a Cliff Notes, a 101 version. But I am planning to bring the adaptive management plan later months as we get some more meat on the bone here, and probably like a May or July date to R&I. And if that goes well, or you request, then we can just make a presentation here as well.
Thank you. And I guess we did mention the Wellfield transmission main project. Basically, the latest on that, alternative 3 and so, or alignment 3 rather. And it says here that it will be brought before the board for approval at the March 21st meeting, i.e. this meeting. Do you have any idea what the new target date will be for that?
To present it to the board will be the first regular meeting in April.
April, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. And this is an excellent report, and I'm glad we describe all the things you have to do to meet the regulatory requirements. I think a lot of people don't understand how heavily regulated water and wastewater especially are in this state. And, it's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of hours spent on that. We appreciate you're doing it as well as you do.
Thank you. Yeah, the state has kind of condensed or concentrated some reports now, where as before, you'd have 3 reports all asking for the same thing. But it was kind of like the right hand didn't know what the left was doing. So some of these reports are just, redundant and just took up so much time. So those are a little bit more concentrated and coordinated now. So we're still having to supply that information, but not in redundancy. So they've gotten a little bit better, but there's a lot of time and effort on those.
Okay, thank you. First, thank you, Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, apologies. Thank you, President Gray. I also wanted to just verify that I hear you right. Is the change of strategy on the AMI is that instead of the plan to spread that over 10 years, we're going to hit that all in 1 year, essentially 2025, all of the meters?
The brass bodies, we're using first of all, we need the data. We need the data bed. Over half of our registers now don't send out, so we're manually reading. That's not the most productive way for operations staff to execute days. And we really want to get that $500,000 grant money and use that for the brass bodies. I think that's a better opportunity for us to change. The registers inside will give us the data, and then also be indicative of what areas we need to attack as far as replacing first. So I think it's a better strategy for replacing, and we'll be bringing it in front of finance, where we're talking about a 1-year complete replacement, or based at like 10% every year for the next 10 years. I know the state, as far as their requirements, it's It's not absolutely mandated, but they like you to test or replace 10% of your meter body inventory every year. That's not always financially feasible for most agencies. So that'll be a good discussion for us to come up in finance, whether we should take that phased approach or kind of all in.
Right. And that will be on the Tuesday,
Well, indeed.
26th meeting of the Finance Committee, just coming up next week.
Yeah.
Any public comment on the utilities report? Ms. Heinrichs?
Yes, thank you for that very thorough report. I just have a little bit more detail I'm wondering about. There's a long section about SST projects that were actually completed in February to the tune of $313,000. And I'm not clear on what we got for that. The RAS/WAS, which was $172,000, the modified LUDSAC for $77,000. And this is all, is PG&E like the contractor on this?
Southland is the consultant and
Because this is
contractor
all
and program
paid to
manager.
PG&E.
Correct, yes. That is their program, and their subcontractor for that is Southland,
Okay.
the head engineer and designer, and then their actual boots on the ground engineer is MKN.
Okay, so we buy this, so they do all the
Procurement
the procurement
and
and the
engineering,
bidding and all that
and
stuff.
we do all the approvals.
And
So
then-
yeah,
okay.
so
So
that is
you
not
get
only
the
engineering, it's also
paperwork.
materials.
Okay.
Yeah, you have over $100,000 of blowers sitting in their yard right now, ready for
Okay,
installation.
yeah, there was a blower for $30,000 there.
Mhm.
So if you could just explain those a little bit more, because I just didn't understand it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comment?
No.
Okay, thank you. I guess that the RAS, RAS and WAS, you could spell, if you spell those acronyms out, I've remembered, I think I remember what they were, but
It's just return activated sludge. So
And-
that's at the
yes.
lead process. And then the waste activated
Okay, good,
sludge.
thank you.
Which is
Yeah.
what takes it, and then we make the concentrate out of it.
thank you
from
very
there.
much.
So, yeah,
You're telling me to turn the timer off here. Okay, it's the tricky little thing.
time's running out.
Okay. I guess I'd like to get through the consent agenda before we take a break. So let's move on to item 6, well, the items under 6, which is consideration adopted February 2024 expenditure report, consideration adopted February 8th, 2024, February 15th, 2024, regular meeting minutes, and February 14th, 2024, and February 26th, 2024, special meeting minutes, and the consideration to postpone the general manager's performance evaluation to a date certain. First of all, does anyone on the board want to poll an item for separate consideration or to ask a brief question for clarification on any item? Vice President Scott.
Yes, I'd like to pull this agenda item 6C.
Okay. Without any objection?
I was going to suggest the same.
Yeah, I'll pull item 6C for separate consideration. To continue with the rest of the agenda, consent agenda, the minutes and the expenditure report, I actually had just a really brief comment on the minutes and just a slight correction. Anybody else have any comments or corrections on either of those reports or questions?
Yes.
Yes, Director Thomas.
Yeah, minor correction on the minutes, outstanding minutes as always. On page 56, the fourth line, where it says to increase the volume and San Simeon groundwater basin. I'm quite sure that is intended to read to increase the volume in the San Simeon groundwater basin. So simply replacing "and" with in the fourth line.
Oh, it's in. Any other corrections? Because that's the one I found too.
High five.
So we both found the same. We were both great.
And
yeah, make that correction.
That's it.
Okay. So we're dealing on this side of the consent. First of all, is there any comment on these items on the consent agenda, not the separate item? Ms. Dodson, any comment online?
No.
Okay. Yes, so this is a vote on the consent agenda, including the financial reports and the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda items 6A and 6B.
A second?
Yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and second that. Thank you.
Moved and seconded that we approve consent agenda items 6A and 6B. Can I have a roll call?
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Director Thomas?
Aye.
Vice President Scott?
Aye.
President Gray?
Aye. Now to 6C. I will say, just to preface this, I think everybody's, well, first of all, wondering what happened, why November 9th, 2024 was chosen, since I guess it's a Sunday?
Saturday.
Saturday, yeah. I think it's sort of maybe a placeholder here, but it's exactly 1 year after the closed session that was held for general manager's last performance. And so the date was, I think, used as just to sort of indicate 1 year later. And I think that's probably, I'm suspecting that's why we're bringing it out for further consideration. I would take suggestions for a different date or a different process if we wanted to do that. Dr. Dean, you want to start?
I think the first meeting in November, just a second, let me look at my calendar. Find my calendar.
November 14th?
Yeah.
That's a possibility. I don't know if any other suggestions, because we can, yeah, Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Gray. And I was thinking, last year, then President Dean worked with, and the Vice President Gray arranged an excellent process where we had a series of meetings where we gathered input on the performance, and it extended over a duration of at least a calendar month, and we came to so it would be wise for us to conclude that prior to the board turning over at the first meeting in December. So I was thinking we would kick that off. It might be wise to kick that off at one of the board meetings in October, just to be sure, and just because things never go faster, they sometimes go slower, I would recommend kicking it off on October 10.
Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I would also recommend that perhaps in May or early June, we do a check-in with the GM. We don't go through that long process that we had, but we do, I guess in closed session, do a check-in with him. So it's not that extended process, but it still is a time for us to talk with him.
Okay. That would be a closed session.
Yes.
I was wondering, is it possible, I ask the council this, I don't think we can do that. We can do the date setting, actually, discuss the date of the upcoming, full evaluation in a closed session, can we?
The date itself?
Yes.
Sure.
We can.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I would suggest this, actually, because I think this is all good. It's a good discussion about how to time this process, because it is a process that stretches out over about a month. And I personally think it should end maybe not even before the new board comes in, but before the election, because we're kind of, it'd be sort of a lame duck board doing it. I would, endorse the idea of that Vice President Scott's idea of having a session, a brief closed session for a, not a full-scale evaluation, but a little, just a progress report, but also then work out the details of the timing of the full evaluation in October. I don't know if we haven't taken any action on that, but that would be my preference.
I think we've had intermittent evaluations of general managers' performances off and on through the last few years. And so I agree with Vice President Scott that maybe in May, we just kind of do a brief review in closed session. But I also think that I really do think we should do the evaluation before the election, the full evaluation, and perhaps start the process that we used before for his first full performance evaluation at some point in September, and then set a date to meet with him to give him his report card. Maybe the second meeting in October rather than wait till November.
My preference would be the second meeting in October too, because that's basically it's right at his 18-month point, which is October 20th.
So that would be October 17th would be the second meeting in October.
Yeah. I don't know if we make this, if we formally can take formal action here, but if somebody wants to move that we postpone this item essentially, or continue this item, and I'll ask for public comment first before we go on further. But maybe we can talk about putting this item on a closed meeting agenda, say end of April, early May. But before we get to that, any motions or anything, I want to take public comment. And I think there was a slip here from Christine Heinrichs on this topic.
Hi, yes, thank you. This is exactly what I was going to bring up, and I think it's a good idea. I think the points you're all making of getting this done before the election, of not skipping a May evaluation, these are opportunities to discuss issues that are coming up, and I think it would be, I think it's important to take every opportunity you have. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more comment?
No.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to, as far as the scheduling of the closed session and what the topic would be. Director Thomas.
Okay. Thank you, President Gray. Then I would move that we schedule a closed session for interim performance evaluation in April or May, and that we'll start the annual performance evaluation process at one of the board meetings in September and finish at the meeting on October 17th.
17th or 17th is the second. That's the second meeting of the month, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Well, I think
I'm
Vice
sorry.
President Scott got to it first. It's been moved and seconded that that we meet in closed session either in April, May, basically before the end of May. I think at a suitable time to have a interim evaluation and conference with the general manager, and then to decide, set the calendar for the formal annual evaluation starting in September. Roll call, please.
Director Thomas?
Aye.
Vice President Scott?
Aye.
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
President Gray?
Aye. We'll take a break of 10 minutes, 10 minutes and change, come back at 2:48.
Yes.
AJP, are you ready? Okay, thank you. The meeting is hereby reconvened. We're on to regular business. Items 7A on the agenda. Discussion and consideration of adoption of Resolution 03-2024, adopting a records retention schedule and authorizing the destruction of certain agency records and rescinding Resolution 6.6-2000. I'll note for the benefit of the people who might have had the earlier agenda without the handouts. There are a couple of handouts designed to help you with some of the terminology and the structure of the schedule I think they're on the front table out there and are, I think, part of the amended agenda packet. I'll turn this over to our general manager to introduce it, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, President Gray. Agenda item 7A, discussion and consideration of adopting of resolution 03-2024, adopting a records retention schedule and authorizing the destruction of certain agency records and rescinding resolution 6-2000. The district has for quite a while now collected quite a bit of documents going back into the 80s, and we do have a storage vendor in San Luis Obispo. Is it VRC? VRC. And we pay them about $1,000 a month. How many boxes do we have there currently? I think we have 1,046 boxes. And it costs how much to pull one box? $34 to pull one box and have it delivered. So we're working through those costs, but we want to basically eliminate those costs. A lot of those records can be destroyed. And so what we're doing is adopting this records retention schedule that will digitize a lot of our records and maintain them per the new laws that have come out. And I do have our consultant on the line that is ready to answer any questions, but we're trying to become a little more efficient with our document maintenance. And then eventually how we're going to get rid of that overhead cost of about $1,000 a month for storing records. And I'm open to any questions. And I also have our consultant on the line.
Yeah, so I'll ask is Ms. Gladwell is the one online? Okay. Actually, so I'll just go to the board here and ask if there are any questions for either General Manager McElhaney or Diane Gladwell, our consultant. I'll start with Director Farmer.
Thank you, President Gray. I guess my main concern under fiscal impact with regard to we're going to realize significant savings in labor and storage expenses. We all look forward to that. However, with the destruction of stored documents that fall outside of the new retention schedule, it says that cost is unknown at this time. Can we even have like a ballpark figure as to what that may be?
As far as the costs of destroying the documents?
Yeah. Yes, I think that's what he means, right?
Yeah, that's I'm just reading what it says here, right?
We have 1,000 of those boxes. I don't know how many of them we would keep, and then we would have to pull each box at $34. So Haley and I have jokingly talked about renting a U-Haul and driving down there and doing it ourselves. So we have to figure out from that vendor exactly what it's going to take to get those boxes and do that the most efficient way and cost-effective way. I don't have a number for you at the moment. I do know when.
And this is Diane Gladwell, the consultant, and I've been doing this a very long time for over 250 cities. What would need to happen for us to give you an accurate figure is for somebody to do the analysis and apply the retention period on all those boxes. We want to make sure that the permanent records and the records that are important to the district are preserved, of course. And so it would take some time to come up with that number.
Ms. Gladwell, I feel confident that it's all going to be done well, and thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's a great question.
It is. But yeah, thank you, Vice President Scott.
My question to Ms. Gladwell is there is it against the law for them to go with a U-Haul and pick up those boxes?
No, so the district owns the records and they can certainly go on site and it would save the district some money. I do have other districts and cities that have done that. Usually they have some workspace at the facility where your boxes are stored. So they can go down there and actually, look at the boxes and analyze them and destroy them, or they would authorize them to destroy. And I just want to make sure the board understands that there are checks and balances before any original record is destroyed. There is a form that's filled out. The department head signs it, the general manager, and then your district council would sign off on it. So we have good checks and balances before any record is destroyed. So they would be on site to prepare them for destruction. If the prior employees did a great job at inventorying and describing the records, and you had confidence into the accuracy of it, you could do the analysis off the description in the inventory. But sometimes that's hit or miss.
Director Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, President Gray, and thank you, Ms. Gladwell. And just acknowledging.
Yeah, there's a question about whether Ms. Gladwell can see us because we have trouble seeing her. Can you see us?
I can see you.
Okay, great. Yeah, we're just working on video on this side. Okay, continue, Dr. Thomas.
Thanks. And I just want to acknowledge I had a truckload of questions, which I think resulted in the legends that came out a couple days ago, without which it was simply impossible to review these 40 pages or so. And all of the questions I had raised have been answered. So and also the thought that it just understanding storage and having done some shredding of boxes in the past for a business can't possibly be cheaper to keep the whole bloody mess than to shred it. And the other comment is that on the informal basis, Matt, I do have a pickup truck and it does have a trailer hitch. And I'd happy to help with this labor of love. Let's call it a labor. This is not as much fun as pulling weeds.
Okay. Director Farmer.
Yeah, I just want to make this observation. Director Thomas just said that he had a truckload of questions, I think you said. So I was just going to ask you if it was a U-Haul truckload of questions, but apparently it's just your own personal truck.
Yeah,
so
it's an
thank you so
F-150.
much.
Yeah. Is there any, if the board is finished with questions, is there any public comment on this topic from the hall here or online?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring it back to the board. Does anybody wish to make a motion?
I should also comment.
Yes.
The one change that we got in one of the pages, on page 73, it looks like a bit of a trivial issue where capital improvement projects, Diane Gladstone added the word list, with the sense that as you read that, the rationale, maintenance only projects and capital projects, that's an oxymoron. Maintenance projects can't be a subset of capital improvement projects by accounting code definition. But the fact of the matter is, maintenance projects are on the CIP list. So just by adding that word list, that made that line of DW 004 copacetic. And so,
okay, great. I'll entertain a motion.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that.
Dr. Farmer.
I'll make the motion that we adopt Resolution 03-2024, adopting a records retention schedule and authorizing the destruction of certain agency records and rescinding Resolution 6-2000.
Second. It's been moved by Director Farmer and seconded by Director Dean that this board adopt Resolution 03-2024, adopting a records retention schedule and authorizing the destruction of certain agency records and rescinding Resolution 6-2000.
I already said that.
I know. Could I have a roll call vote?
Director Farmer,
Aye.
Director Dean.
Aye.
Director Thomas.
Aye.
Vice President Scott.
Aye.
President Gray.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gladwell,
Thank you.
for your answers to our questions. I'm going to see you again. Thank you.
2 thumbs up.
Mm.
Good. Thank you very much. Item 7B is discussion and consideration to approve the capital improvement project CIP list format. I think there's been some confusion about this item as to what's being considered, and this is maybe a good time for I'll turn it over to staff to explain it, but this is format only, not the actual items content of this list, including the priorities and all that stuff. That's all just there as an illustration, but I'll turn it over to Mr. McElhaney for more further discussion.
Thank you, President Gray. Agenda item 7B, discussion and consideration to approve the capital improvement project list format. This list, and we've discussed about it in some of our board walks, and I've done it with Ms. Fritz. This capital improvement list never really was born with staff. This kind of came out of our subcommittees, and at one point staff had adopted it as a tool, but there's been some ongoing confusion about its purpose. What is it for? A legend to help define it. And so as Ms. Fritz and I and Mr. Green have been discussing, we've adjusted this format. We do feel that there's still some more questions about its use, how it's used. And we were thinking that perhaps it be sent back to a subcommittee and perhaps an ad hoc committee to actually define its scope and define a legend and what it's for. Again, staff doesn't really use this document for ourselves as much as it's a tool for the board and the public to understand our capital improvement projects. So, and I also can turn over to Ms. Fritz, but that was some of our initial thoughts is to get it back to an ad hoc committee, and perhaps the board and subcommittee members could design it because we believe it's for them.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that correct, Ms. Fritz?
Yeah, Ms. Fritz.
Yeah, the first charge was looking at the format and providing information for, dual purposes of finance and the R&I committee. I saw all the comments at the last board meeting that it came before, wanting to clarify the ranking system and developing a narrative around the process and like a timeline of the process as well, its purpose and a legend. I did not feel that I've been involved in the process enough at all. Actually, have I been involved in creating the CIP list to be able to adequately capture all of those things by myself in sort of a vacuum. We're starting out a new budget year, so I think my thought was going through this budget year, I can take notes on what's happening, what the timeline is, and then yes, maybe working with either a dual ad hoc between finance and R&I, or just R&I on exactly what the intent and purpose, especially since we're changing it with this format a little by adding a lot more like project to date financial information and not just the budget. As well as what I can see, the R&I is really focused on the water and wastewater, the utility portion of this list. And so it's unclear to me how and who approves the general fund portion of these projects. So I would like to discuss and hopefully approve the formatting. So because I think it is an improvement and I think it answers a lot of the public's questions about the projects. But I think there's more work to be done that is not, that's going to take a little bit longer to really kind of formalize the ranking and, a narrative and those other things that the board wanted to see.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any questions, first of all, from the directors? Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you. I just had a question about what the history is of the CIP list. Like how long has it been around and who created it and that kind of thing. I don't know if anybody has that information.
So, may I?
Oh, yeah, you may.
Okay, so the R&I committee was formed as the infrastructure committee in April of 2018. And at that time, Bob Greshams brought this list before us. to help us understand what infrastructure projects were needed. And that's where, as far as I know, the list began. It started out as a list to follow the projects through that needed to be done. And then when Miss Duffield came on board, she took it over as a financing document. So what we're trying to do is make this a document that is workable for both tracking the infrastructure and general fund projects, as well as the budgeting of those projects. And that's why we formed an ad hoc committee with President Gray and myself to help work out the format on that. So it did follow not only just the infrastructure projects, but where it was in the budget, what money is being spent on it. So that's what where we were with this. The headers and things that are on this format were things that President Gray and I worked out with Ms. Fritz. And then some was added after a board meeting where we looked at it before. There's an ad hoc committee of R&I that is working with Mr. Green on the prioritization and, where it falls. And I think Mr. Green can probably add to that, but I think he's going to be meeting with the finance manager to work out the budgeting part of it. And once we've got the prioritization and ranking done, I believe it's going to finance to look at the budget, but maybe Mr. Green can explain it a little bit better.
Yeah, Mr. Green.
The ad hoc committee that was formed, we've been meeting for the last several months, once to twice a month. And we've kind of vetted what we think's important for CIP. They're based off of kind of like a three-legged stool that keeps us afloat here. That's safety first, along with regulatory compliance, and then truly needed upgrades to the system that are actually not beneficial for us processing or are causing us more labor or further, money lost on water loss or potential, breaks in sewer lines that would cause us a notice of violation for spill. So those are kind of our three factors that we had in mind going to evaluation of each of these criteria for water and wastewater and utilities upgrades. So if that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Farmer.
Thank you, President Gray. I have a comment and a question. First off, Director Dean was just alluding to our previous engineer, Mr. Gressens, with regard to the CIP list. And quite often, let's say every other month or so, sometimes every month, you would actually expand the list to where it was feet long and then hanging up on the wall here. So members of the public as well as us could actually go up there and really eyeball it and take a look at it. So I just wanted to mention that. But also, I have a question with regard to the format, well, not so much the format, but the so-called numbering system, which I think we're all used to seeing 1, 2, 3, and so forth. But I see a number of letter Bs, and I'm just wondering what that represents.
May I?
Yes, please.
The B are items that are budgeted.
In the current budget.
In the current budget.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Dr. Thomas? Yeah, Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Gray. Not sure exactly where to start, but right, because as you've framed it, this is really don't pay any attention to the priorities. This is really merely the format, yet the priority rankings have been changed. So it causes me to scratch my head trying to figure out the implications of that. And right, yeah, the motion at the January meeting was to further define the process for establishing the CIP list, and based on that process, develop a revised format consistent with that process. And to me, that's what needs to be done. How does the integration of the strategic planning process, the CIP list, long-term what needs to be done, and the budget, those need to be an integrated system that work together towards meeting the future. And as it is, they're not exactly that. So, yeah, and I've got comments on the specific headers, but maybe we're not ready to go there.
Well, I would suggest that maybe the headers, here's my take on this, maybe to bifurcate the issue of the topic a little bit. The near term object, I guess, is to decide whether we like this, the columns and how things are laid out in terms of being intelligible and useful. The longer term issue, which will take a little more study, is what gets something on the CIP list, basically. And I think Director Thomas is alluding to this. How do we set these priorities, and how do we make them consistent with our strategic plan and our long-term financial planning, which I think is just in its early stages, but I think is something that we're going to be developing. I think everything has to be integrated. That's something that I think we can get that process moving, and at the same time decide whether we think this layout, which is the layout basically that you see here, and don't think about the numbers and the specific titles and the priorities, but just how it conveys information is suitable. And we can start with that, and then have the further discussion of priority setting and the legend, description of the process assigned to whoever I think would be appropriate to do it. So my idea here is maybe we decide at least that the format's okay, and then talk about how to do the the actual CIP list, creation of the CIP list, and how to manage that. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just it's a good way to kick this around a bit. Yeah, and I've always been a fan of the concept that form follows function. That with anything of this magnitude, this is a lot of work for staff to assemble. A lot of work. We ask them to do it, and we can't exactly explain how it's used. Form follows function. Define the process of how projects are identified, and it's called the CIP list, but then it includes maintenance projects. It just challenges the mind. Is it a capital improvement project list, or is it a project list? And if it's just a mess of things we want to do, okay, let's figure that out. Don't call it a CIP list if it's not capital improvement projects, because there's a clear definition of that. So I'm an advocate that we get the process sorted out, and based on how we want the process to work, the form will follow from that. The continually seeking to, well, we'll get the process later, but let's get the form. We're just going to keep running staff through the squirrel cage of doing this work for us. And I was surprised to hear the statement that staff doesn't use this. Like, well, that's news to me. And then if they're not, okay, then it's not quite so urgent to agree on the format for what they're not using. Let's get this right.
Can I interject? Utility staff, we do use this as a tool for budgeting. I have 2 younger or fresher superintendents, so we've used this opportunity to not only go over the budget process and how to read a budget formally, but then how to assemble your CIP wish list and rank it appropriately, and then budget effectively. So, I mean, we in utilities, we do use it.
Yeah. Director Dean, then after I get through this round of questions or discussions, I'll open to the public comment if there is any, but Director Dean first.
I think we're missing a subcategory on this under each one of the project lists, because I think we said we were going to put a separate section for maintenance projects, and the maintenance projects that would be on this list are the ones that would require a budget adjustment, not just a simple item, but a major maintenance progress. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, if it were the general fund replacing the Vets Hall roof, or recoating a tank or something like that, something that is a major maintenance project that requires a budget. But I thought we were going to have a separate little yellow line underneath these that said maintenance. So they're not part of the actual capital projects.
Thank you. I can see, go ahead. Sorry.
And yes, we are trying to make this so both the departments that use this list and the finance department can use this together. So, and I think we were going to put something on here also for a long-term project, like a 10-year list. So, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, thank you.
And Ms. Fritz has her hand raised.
Yeah, I wanted to. Oh, Ms. Fritz.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I use this list in the way that it is required for me to include this list through in the budget, the preliminary budget, the final budget, and every quarterly report. So I do update it with what it has been is it's been its budget, as well as how much has been spent that fiscal year. So I use it in the way to update it. Now, for me personally, as the finance manager, this new format that's being proposed, I would use because it has project to date, which means that those projects that are crossing fiscal years, I am keeping track of how much has been spent. The old form does not do that. So it does not, as the finance manager, I would not use that old form to keep track of how much has been spent project to date for projects. So I just want to say, if we want to go back to the drawing board, when this first came up, I was directed to look at the format. So if we want to go and do function first and then format for this budget cycle, which is happening right now, we will still be utilizing the old format. So I just want to make that statement.
Yeah, so I was going to ask about that. If this, in the current budget cycle, which format, I'm going to ask Ms. Fritz for her professional opinion here, which one would you rather be using, the one that's right before us now or the old one?
Whichever one you guys want me to use, I will use. This
politic
one,
answer.
As a finance man, I will be keeping track of these expenditures and project to date expenditures on my own for my own knowledge and ability to properly report on projects and give updates to you with the most accurate information. As far as the CIP list goes, I will use whichever one that you all want me to use.
Before I go on, I'm going to ask for public comment. I don't know if there is any, but is there any public comment in the hall here? Anyone else online?
No.
Okay. Director Dean.
I would think it would be better for the board's understanding of the money being spent on projects if we said we were going to use this format that is in front of us. Because I think it puts the information out here a little bit better about what has been spent to date. And I also think since the CIP list gets put in the budget reports, that it makes the information a little more readily available for the public as well.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion, actually, and I think the motion would be to logically adopt this format for the current budget cycle with, of course, the we'll talk about what to do after that, but we have to deal with what we're going to do in the current budget. I mean, Director Dean sort of gave us a choice. Do we go with the system that we had before, or this new format? So maybe that question should be on the table first.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Okay, if I may, I would like to vote that we approve the capital improvement project CIP list format that is in our agenda packet.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that. Okay. And with the rationale that it's really important what Ms. Fritz just said. We're going to go for, we're going to use the old list, got it right here, or the new list. And never one to let perfect be the enemy of better. This is way better.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the proposed capital improvement project CIP list format as presented. I could have a roll call.
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Thomas?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Vice President Scott?
Aye.
President Gray?
Aye. Thank you. I think we can, next, in a future agenda, I think, and we can give us some consideration, appoint an ad hoc committee, and I'll talk to whoever is interested in doing it, to look into the integration of the CIP list with our long-term budget planning, which is a big issue, but it's something we need to do. Because I mean, Director Dean did sort of give a good little thumbnail history of it. It kind of just popped up out of the utilities area as something the engineer was doing, and it never really, it didn't start with budgeting. It started with, and it, you know, it always has been sort of had that issue of, well, this is what we need to do over here, and this is what we need to do over here, and it never was really connected to strategic planning or long-term financial planning, and we need to, you know, work that out. So I'll talk to somebody, whoever really wants to be on this ad hoc committee, I'll talk, let me know.
I think you, as the chair of the finance committee, should be one of them, and Director Thomas.
I certainly have a lot of interest and energy in the field of capital project improvement management. So,
well,
I would be willing. It sounds like a lot of work, but definitely.
We will. I can. I'll think about it, because I think. Yeah, I'll think about it, of course. But it's turning on my schedule and my you know.
If President Gray doesn't want to do that as chair of R&I, I'm willing to do it.
Yeah.
Once you decide whether you want to do it or not.
And the next meeting I'll make sure I have a decision made. Moving along to item number 7C. This is the discussion and consideration of adoption of policy 1045, legal counsel and auditor policy. I don't know if this is, who would want to present this specifically? It comes out of policy committee. Be Vice
I'd
President.
be more than happy.
Vice President Scott can describe it, because there was also a handout which explains some of the process of how this developed to this current form. So maybe you can start and explain that.
Yeah, this is agenda item 7C, discussion and consideration of adoption of policy 1045, legal counsel and auditor policy. So this policy has been before the policy committee several times, and then it came before the board because at one point we thought it was ready for the board to approve, but actually it wasn't. And our legal counsel had input that he wanted to make in regards to the policy. And so that's where we began, is we took the policy, and this is a CSDA policy. This is not a CCSD policy. And that policy is the policy that you have in your first, yes, in your first packet, with changes that had been added not only by legal counsel, but also by the policy committee. After this policy was then sent back to the policy committee, we had further discussion, and that discussion resulted in the handout that you have now. So let me go through the original policy and the changes that have been made so that you can understand clearly what's happened. So I'm going to refer to the policy that is in your packet. So the first thing was that the word department heads was changed to department managers. And then under 1045.2, there are bullets. And in the second bullet, we again took the capitals away from closed session and made small, not capitals, closed session. And included the closed session report shall include a topic description and all disclosable information prior to the closed session. legal counsel shall give an oral or written, and written was included based on information from the Brown Act, report to the public after the closed session meeting as further described in the Brown Act. And we did look at the whole Brown Act, so we just wanted to make sure we were meeting those requirements. Then the third bullet, legal counsel shall serve at the pleasure of the board and shall be compensated for services as determined by the board, was already in the policy, but the second sentence was added. The selection of legal counsel shall be done in a noticed public meeting and at least every 5 years. It was said that it was a noticed meeting, but we put in there and at least every 5 years. Yeah.
There's a little more here.
Yes. So I'm just going to do the next bullet, and the only changes in the next bullet was board member was changed to director. If you look at the handout that you received later after your packet, on the second bullet, there was recommendation by the committee that public comment will be taken prior to the closed session meeting. Legal counsel shall report after the closed session meeting to the public of the status details of any action taken in a closed session and the vote for abstention on that action of every member present. So in other words, if there is a vote, which in my experience, we haven't had votes in closed session, but if there is a vote, then legal counsel would report that as part of his final report.
And the next one, yeah.
And then the last one is section 1045.3, and the administrative department manager and general manager, we added, will install and maintain an accounting system that will completely and all times show the financial condition of the district. The committee itself suggested that we add including total indebtedness and total annual debt service. So what I'd like for the board to do is to look at the information that's here and decide what it is that you want in the policy. Because the policy committee just suggests things to be in this policy. The other thing is that you all have to make a policy decision about what you actually want the board to do in regards to general counsel. I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? First of all, questions for Vice President Scott from the board. Okay. Is there any public comment on this?
No.
Okay. I think we can go back to discussion. Yeah, I think this is something we need to kind of maybe go around and discuss and get people's views and come up with something we would approve. I can start with whoever wants to go first, and that is Director Dean, I believe.
Okay. As far as the auditor, I understand the reason for needing to change the auditor every 5 years, because that is the person that oversees how we take care of our ratepayers' money. But we usually keep the same auditing firm. We just change the person within the auditing firm. At least that's been my experience in the past. As far as legal counsel, I see no reason to look at changing legal counsel every 5 years. We would lose the historical knowledge of the legal counsel that we are working with. I don't think that needs to be in there, because we can at any time, since we employ the legal counsel, we can fire the legal counsel and get an RFP going out at any time we want. And I believe we just signed an agreement with Carmel and Akasha in June. And there are 13 attorneys at Carmel and Akasha. So if at any point Mr. Carmel retires or we need to change attorneys, there's still 13 attorneys at that firm. But I see no reason. Like I said, I don't think any of us have had any problems with the expert legal counseling of Mr. Carmel and his associate David Hirsch, and I see no reason to just say right off the bat we're going to change legal counsel every 5 years, because like I said, we can always fire a person.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Thomas, Dr. Thomas.
Thank you, President Gray. Yeah, just want to concur. And there is a requirement in state code that special districts change auditors every 5 years, and they are specific that that, as Director Dean has stated, that doesn't mean you change companies, but it does mean you change the principal auditor. And so we could reword 104.5.3 to make that more clear. That would be useful. And it's a good point that there is no similar requirement, I believe, on legal counsel.
No, there isn't.
It certainly doesn't hurt to reconsider, but then again, you make the point that, you know, that sentence really is useless. So I could be, you know, easily swayed to take that out from the third bullet. Another thing, in the list of duties on 104.5.2, well, actually, I wanted to kind of step back with a preface. You know, we've commented many times, we've heard many times the original policy says this. It took me a bit to figure out, yes, the district does not currently have a policy for legal counsel or auditor. This is, you know, as we can see, the CSDA standard policy, which policy committee has worked for our review. So currently, the district has no policy on record, numbered 1045, in this space.
Correct.
So just finishing the thought, you know, under the list of duties, it's interesting that the most frequent duty we get from our council is attending board meetings, assisting when necessary as parliamentarian to help the board comply with Brown Act and other requirements. That's the thing that we see from district council most often, and that's not listed here. So that would be useful to indicate under the list of duties. And I'll pause for now.
Okay. Anybody? Vice President Scott.
Just in response to that, it was our legal counsel at this time who added some of the duties that are in this CSDA policy, but he didn't add that. But that's interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can. Any other? Did you have any other comments to make, Dr. Thomas? Okay, yeah, because I had a few, and I'm concurring. I concur on the third bullet point in 1045.2. Legal counsel shall serve at the pleasure of the board and shall be compensated for services as determined by the board. I too, I think, would leave it at that, and I'd add a little further on, you know, what the CSDA policy or model policy represents. It is kind of the standard practice. You know, it's not every board does exactly the same thing. It's considered sort of best practice in these areas. You know, in the CSDA's view, which is worth taking seriously. And we should all understand, I think we do now, that in the original recommendation from the CSDA, that bullet point ends at services determined by the board, period, and that's it. And it specifically says, under the auditor selection, 1045.3, selection of the auditor shall be done at a notice public meeting at least every 5 years. It's a really good reason for that distinction, and I think we touched on it a little bit here. One is that the auditor is supposed to be someone that you're not supposed to have a personal relationship with your auditor. You want somebody who's going to be kind of the outsider coming in, you know, with their gentleman-eyed look at everything and make sure you're doing everything right all the books are in order, and the danger of having the same person, especially in that position for more than 5 years, is that they become everybody gets too comfortable on both sides, and that's the reason for that. It's the opposite, really, with legal counsel. If you have a legal counsel in whom you have trust and who has a knowledge of your situation, your history, and the relevant law, that person's an asset that you want to keep, because it's your advisor. It's not somebody who's policing you. It's the person who's advising you, telling you how to stay out of trouble, essentially, in a lot of ways, and giving you guidance in a very, very complicated legal situation. And you want to encourage people who are going to be your counsel, that if they work out, if you have a good relationship, that relationship is long term. So even the 5-year thing, whether or not the person has to actually be judged every 5 years or whatever, it would discourage hiring of a good legal counsel, a good lawyer. So I'm with I think with Director Thomas and Director Dean on that. I had two other things I thought were a little bit needed changing. In the middle of the second bullet, the sentence, "The closed session report shall include a topic description and all disclosable information prior to the closed session." I don't understand that last phrase. I don't know what it is even, and I was wondering if that gives I don't want to put anybody on the spot here, but it just sounds like I don't quite understand what that.
Is Mr. Carmel?
He's here, yeah. Mr. Carmel?
Maybe he could speak to
Did
that.
he add that or want that added?
No, he didn't.
Oh, Mr. Carmel?
I don't know. I honestly don't know what that means. It's very vague.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of discretion involved in all disclosable information. Again, I'm not sure I understand the point of that. I disclose what I can, and as you know, at this point, they normally ask the board what they want me to disclose, and as long as the Brown Act allows it, I do. But that's kind of ambiguous to me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate your opinion on that, because it seems like this very, very murky to me, and I could just see taking that sentence out, going from session items before the board, going right directly to legal counsel shall give an oral written report, and just leave it at that. The other thing, one more thing that I thought needed to be changed, and I understand why this change was made, but it's also a little bit confusing. In the auditor section under section A, where it's called the administrative department manager and general manager, that wording was inserted instead of chief financial officer and general manager. I think for purposes of clarity as to the function of the people involved in that process, whoever is the chief financial officer is the one you really want to be part of that. That's their responsibility. Administrative department manager is currently a title that the person who is also our financial manager holds, but in this context, Ms. Fritz's role as financial manager is what's crucial. And I think just a chief, she's the chief financial officer of the district, in addition to being administrative department manager. I think we should keep that for that reason, just in case there's some things are organized differently in the future, when we have separate person as financial manager and another person as assistant, as administrative manager. I would keep chief financial officer in there as in the original CSDA text. So those are the three things that I saw I'd like to see. Anybody else have any? Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I concur. The CFO is the role that is essential here, and the manner in which we organize is can be transient. Yeah, and right, and on the disclosure from closed sessions, you all know I'm always an advocate of saying all we can from closed session, and at the same time recognize that it's always complicated in terms of what is in the district's best interest to say, knowing the range of risks that can occur from from saying things from closed session that that will be liabilities later. So, but certainly all disclosable information could be reams and reams and reams. So that would not be appropriate. Just wanted to comment on that.
Yes, thank you, President Gray. Yeah, I just want to make a comment that might not necessarily be that pertinent to this item here, but with regard to the legal counsel, with regard to every 5 years changing legal counsel, so to speak, I know we're removing that, but I just would like the public to know, at least I think for the time that I've been on the board, and I'm sure it was done before, that every year we do a job evaluation of legal counsel. And if we see any issues that we feel are concerned, that we bring it up to legal counsel and we have a discussion and we kind of grade, we actually grade legal counsel on the quality of their job performance. And so I just want to let people know that we're not paying attention. I mean, we are paying attention to how our legal counsel conducts himself and in representing the board and the district and the community. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice President Scott?
Yes, a couple things. One is I would just like to ask Mr. Carmel if he thinks that adding parliamentarian into this policy would be a good idea.
It's fine. It's actually in the bylaws,
Okay.
but it can be repeated here without a problem.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And so what I'd like to do is just hear from the public.
Oh, I think, didn't I ask for comment already? Or did I?
No.
Okay. I think I did.
Did you?
I'll ask again. Anybody here want to comment in the hall? No? Okay. Public comment online?
No.
I mean, by Zoom? Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what I'd like to do is to let you know that I have heard what you've said, and I would like to ask you to direct me to craft the wording that you have now suggested and then bring it back to the next meeting. Or you could tell me to do that and approve it as that, but I would rather bring it back.
Okay, so we need a motion. We need a motion to do that, and be fairly specific too, I think, because there's like several things that we brought up. Does anyone want to tackle that?
Thank you, President Gray.
Dr. Thomas.
I move that the board direct the policy committee to revise CSDA policy 1045, legal counsel and auditor policy, to reflect the gist of the discussions that we've had at this meeting.
Be more specific, I think. Is there a second?
Well, do you want me to list what he's talking about?
Well, I think we do need to put it in the motion. Yeah. I mean, do you want to?
Could I amend it?
You can amend. Well, you can amend it. Yeah, specific things.
Okay. So the first thing is to add parliamentarian as part of bullet number 2 under 1045.2.
Yes.
To remove
It's the second sentence.
the second sentence. The second sentence of the second bullet.
And well, second sentence of the third bullet too.
And the second sentence of the third bullet. And in 1045.3, put CFO,
Chief Financial Officer.
Chief Financial Officer instead of Administrative Department Manager.
Yes.
And that's really what you've said.
Okay. Whoever made the motion, you could just say, I so move. It's just what the lady said.
I concur with these friendly amendments.
Okay, and I'll second it.
Okay, second.
Or I'll second it, and let me just ask, if I do that and make it not CSDA, but make it CCSD a policy, do I need to bring it back to you, or How-
I think we need to adopt it, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll bring it back at the next
What has board
meeting.
adopted?
Okay,
Yeah, okay, great.
great.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded, moved by Director Thomas and with a friendly amendment by Vice President Scott, and I think seconded by Vice President Scott, I guess we could say that, that the policy 1045 be redrafted, brought back to the board with changes that specified, to wit, adding parliamentarian to list of responsibilities of the council, deleting the second paragraph, second sentence of the second bullet, the second sentence of the third bullet, and replacing the term administrative department manager with chief financial officer. Have a roll call.
Director Thomas?
Aye.
Vice President Scott?
Aye.
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
President Gray?
Aye. Okay, thank you, everybody. Hard work here. So we'll go on to 7D. And I think I'm going to ask for an extension. Hopefully we can get things done by 4:15. Do I have a unanimous approval of the board to have the meeting extended till 4:15? No objection? We're going to 4:15. Item 7D. This is discussion and consideration of approval of an agreement for contractor services to replace the San Simeon Well 3 SS3 pump. Staff, take it from here.
Great. Thank you, President Gray. We've been here before talking about SS3 back from December 14th. Unfortunately, at that time, the vendor that we awarded the bid to could not fulfill his bond requirements, and that is obviously frowned upon. So here we are again. Essentially, we've had this thing proposed 6 times. On the second one, prices escalated a little bit, but we're asking for a little bit more and some further inspection of our plumbing effluent of the well. We're going to have some work done, as well as a transducer tube be placed in there so we can put full-time monitoring of the San Simeon well level, static, drawdown, cone of depression, all those things that indicate well health and pump health. We've incorporated into this. We've been at R&I and vetted this through the R&I committee. And we chose this vendor because we like working with the engineer. They asked all the right questions, they were prompt, and essentially they picked the same equipment that was chosen prior to. But again, we're trying to give a new vendor a new shot here. So I'm available for any questions if you'd like me to go into more description, but I think we kind of know the topic that we've been on here.
Great. So any questions from the board? Dr. Thomas.
I'm sorry, before you go, Director Thomas, I'm sorry. I will point out in the fiscal impact zone, it's again, my error, it's a clerical error, that 45,260 should actually be 46,285. And that was just a typo on my part, so I apologize for that.
Great. So any questions? I think Director Thomas had one, yeah.
Thank you. Just one. I began wondering, has SS3 been out of service since the excessive vibration was discovered?
Absolutely not. The vibration has gone away, which means the actual fins are not sucking as much water. So we've lost gallons per minute. We've lost about 50 gallons per minute, as we described back in August at the R&I committee and how this would proceed. So no, that has actually been our primary well for this week. So it is still active. It's semi-healthy. It's just a little less yield in gallons per minute at this time.
Right. So the pump is continuing to degrade.
Yeah, it's degrading as expected.
Okay, great.
So you can see the urgency in this matter.
Any other questions? Is there any public comment from people present or from people online?
No.
Yeah, thank you. Taking it back to the board, I'll entertain a motion. Director Thomas.
I move that we approve the agreement for contracting services to replace the San Simeon Well 3 pump with Precision Hydro.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agreement for contractor services to replace the San Simeon Well 3 pump. I have a roll call.
Director Thomas?
Aye.
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Vice President Scott?
Aye.
President Gray?
Aye. Final item on regular business is 7E. Discussion and consideration of approval of a consultant services agreement with True Penny Inc. to develop a water service line materials inventory and assistance with lead service line reporting requirements. Again, I'll turn it over to staff, Mr. McElhaney or Mr. Green.
I'll provide some context.
Okay,
So what
yeah.
the Division of Drinking Water, or State Water Resources Control Board rather, rolled out about September, October last year, was that agencies, municipalities would have to evaluate, inspect, and then report what service line materials that the homeowner has on their side of the house. For years, we've provided materials of our distribution system in depth down to the very foot of pipe. Now what's rolling out here, and this is mandatory, and it is due October 16th, 2024, is that we provide on the other side of the meter what's the material in water supply coming from the meter, and then what is actually going into the house on the shut-off valve. Fortunately for us, we are doing the water meter replacement, so we'll be in everybody's valve box this summer, so we can glean a lot of that knowledge and get a lot of that physical inventory down. But the reason why we're reaching out for consultant services is you're creating a website. There's no one on staff here that knows how to write code, create a website. What the Division of Drinking Water, or rather State Water Resources Control Board, is requiring that you have a website or a link that obviously you post on your website or just available out there, that any homeowner, or I'm sorry, community member here can go query their address. So you should be able to type in 1234 and then the list of, Nottingham, Sherwood could come up, and then you can select your house, and that will tell you what kind of materials you have. And that's just to make the homeowner aware of the lead and copper kind of hazardous notion of those materials being in your service line. We have nothing on the district side. This is merely put on the shoulders of agencies, and many agencies are struggling to get this done right now, to shoulder this inventory assessment management, so that way all the homeowners know what material they have in there. We did begin this search back in October of last year. We reached out to several vendors, one of them 120 Water. Their legal counsel and our legal counsel couldn't reach an accord, so that was scrapped after several months of doing some research with them. We've then reached out to Blue Conduit, who directly refused due to they were already busy. So fortunately, we came on with this Trupani, is how you say it. And they realized that we were small enough to take on for them to do this, but they're not taking on any new clients as well. I think a lot of municipalities, especially larger ones, kind of waited till they were behind the 8 ball, and they kind of sucked up all the vendors. And this is a new kind of nuance to what water agencies or municipalities are having to report for. So something that we'd like to get started on. It's mandatory. And again, we just don't have this kind of knowledge in-house to create websites and do coding and make queryable lists for 4,036 services. So this is something that will split into 20,000 of this fiscal year, and then the remainder in FY 24-25. To help pay for this. But this will be a document or a website or a queryable thing that we'll have forever and will be ours to own.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Green. Any questions from the board? Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. My question is, can you assure us that it'll get done by October 16th?
Well, it has to. My name's on the permit, so I guarantee you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Deadline on this one. Any other questions? Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Gray. It's hasn't been that long, but then again, it has been a while, since December of 2021. And kind of the backstory. Here we are, October. We're talking less than 7 months away. And so what's transpired during 2022 and 2023 that
this actually rolled out in September, October of 23, not 21.
Gotcha. Promulgated 2.5 years ago, but not landed.
Right.
until,
Right.
right.
It was a suggestion then. And actually, some backstory with that too. We've
But we knew
gone
it
and
was coming.
started inventory on our end to kind of shorten the physical part of this, but we really need their help on making it digestible in a public format.
And my question about what exactly is the procedure? Because so every service line, at every address gets checked then, right?
Yes.
For lead,
For whatever material.
whatever material.
Yeah.
For
you
whatever
have-
material.
You have lead, which we have no lead in.
Yeah.
Post 1985 or 6 was the lead-free copper. There was no
Right.
more lead
No lead
sweating,
solder or anything
so
like
that
that,
was
yeah.
moved. So that eliminates some of the properties if they were built post 1986, but we still have to report on that. But so they're looking at PVC material. Some have HDPE after their meter service, and some are copper from the meter all the way influent into their house and in their attics and stuff, running through their walls. So this is just, again, we're just going from the customer's end of the meter into their house. What they have after that, we're not to report on yet.
Yeah. So everybody's going to know then what's in their supply line, their service line.
It is. It's more of a
Yeah.
public awareness
Yeah.
for them. So if if you have some health issues or something, well, you've got lead in your pipes for the last 30 years. Maybe that's why you have a third eye right here. So no, I don't know. But, you can kind of distinguish some health hazards.
Yeah. Any public comment on this? And public comment online?
I just have one public comment to read.
Thank
and
you.
It's
Yeah, go
from
ahead.
Jeff Wilson. Regarding agenda item 70 and the discussion, I don't see any reference to alternative bids and pricing that were sought or received. Was this work put out to market for RFP? If not, please explain why, as well as explain the reasoning for selecting Trupani. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess you mentioned a number of things already that kind of sort of suggested that we were kind of you didn't have that many choices, and it's also the size of the contract is not large enough to trigger requirement for RFPs, right?
It's a professional services agreement, so we don't need formal bids or three informal bids or anything. But yeah,
thank you.
we still, sought 3 bids.
Dr. Farmer.
Thank you, President Gray. Mr. Green, you already alluded to the fact that water staff are already going to be out, examining the lines. So this was just a slight addition to their efforts, so to speak, during the summer. But I think that still implies that they are going to have more and more work to do, even if it's just 5 minutes per line. That time amount adds up. Like you said, it has to be done, so it's going to be done. And you feel staff is more than capable of being able to take on this additional demand on their time, right?
Yes, I do. Trupani, part of this quote is for some physical field work as well. We're hoping that we'll nail down the majority of it so that we won't reach the full extent of this contract, and we can save, 10 or hopefully 20 grand off the physical aspect by going out there and doing it ourselves. But if we don't have the bandwidth for staff and we have some major events that would detract us from proofing this, that we would have that with Trupani already settled in a contract.
Right, to kind of fall back on.
To fall back on, indeed.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Dean.
And part of the biggest part that we need help from Trupani is doing the website and the data collection.
Absolutely, yeah. It's organizing it, make it queryable, and then obviously putting out there on the World Wide Webs.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion or questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay.
Dr. Dean.
I move that we approve the consultant services agreement with Trupani Incorporated to develop a water service line materials inventory and assistant with lead service line reporting requirements.
I'll second.
A second. Yes, moved and seconded that we just approve the consultant services agreement with Trupani Inc. to develop the water service line, et cetera, et cetera. Could I have a roll call, please?
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Thomas?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Vice President Scott?
Aye.
President Gray.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for getting through getting through the business rather expeditiously here. We're going on to future agenda items. At this time, you can request a formal agenda report be prepared in an item placed in the future agenda. You can't take formal action except to direct the general manager to place a matter of business on a future agenda by majority vote. And as is our custom, we start out with Ms. Dodson reading what is now has already been proposed for future agendas or is tentatively placed on future agendas. So you can start with that list and we'll go from there.
Sure. Consideration to adopt a resolution declaring a public nuisance for the annual fire hazard fuel reduction program. Consideration to adopt a resolution declaring a vehicle surplus and authorizing sale by the general manager. A public hearing to receive community input on the draft project description for the water reclamation facility coastal development permit application and direct staff to file the draft project description to the County of SLO Department of Planning and Building staff for final evaluation, input, and direction. Discussion and consideration to fix water and wastewater standby or availability charges as provided in Government Code Section 61124B, and consideration of adoption of a resolution fixing water and wastewater standby or availability charges for fiscal year 24-25. Discussion and consideration of approval of the Zero Liquid Discharge Pilot Testing Program. Discussion and consideration of proposal from the Cambria Rotary Peace Garden display at the Cambria Veterans Memorial parking lot. Discussion and consideration of an agreement between CCSD and Friends of the Fiscalini Ranch Preserve regarding the Fiscalini Ranch Linking Boardwalk project. Discussion and consideration regarding relocation of the East Ranch restroom. Update the CCSD Board of Directors regarding the countywide evacuation plan and Cambria's fire prevention plan. Introduction of a civil administrative citation ordinance for a violation of CCSD ordinances and regulations. Receive and file a report by Monty Soto for the fire evacuation route. Discussion and consideration of the report and recommendations of the Finance Standing Committee Revenue Enhancement in the General Fund. Receive and file the Independent Auditor's Report for fiscal year 22-23, and discussion and consideration regarding the reserve policy. And potentially bringing back the policy 1045, legal counsel and auditor policy.
It will be, yeah, that I would expect that to be back. When is the policy committee meeting? 28th? It could be either date in April then, yeah. So if there's something that wasn't on that list that you want to pose to us as a long list, well, it's about 2 months worth of meetings. Anything that was on that list, well, it's a lot of it's in April. Oh, sounds like a lot to me. It's 2 months. No, it's 2 months worth of meetings in 1 month. Okay, anybody? Yeah, Director Dean.
So do we need to put something in on the agenda about starting the evaluation process for the general manager?
Thank you. Yes, I think we should have that as would be a closed session item. I think in April, it could be in one of the April meetings. If the April meeting is quite long, and we'll have to determine this in agenda review, it could be in May. See the first meeting in May, perhaps. But it should be that, no later than that. Put that on. Any others, Director Dean? Yeah. I didn't have any more. Anybody else have any future agenda items they want to propose? Well, I think we're done for the day. Thank you for everybody for constructive discussions, and thank you staff for very informative explanations of things, and thank you to the public for being here to show your interest and share your views. I hereby adjourn this meeting.